the Tour de France with Astra, the satellite system.
Well, today's stage of the Tour de France, stage 19, Futurescope, a 57-kilometre thrash round, a time trial with the riders starting in reverse order on general classification. And they're going at 3-minute intervals. We're going to pick up the top men. You see on the screen there the information about this stage. And they've all now left the start house. And the fastest time we have so far as they go around this particular route there, that little dotted line, is that of Verbrugge. And the finishing time has 1 hour, 10 minutes and 20 seconds. For those of you following the Chris Boardman's performance, he's now back in 8th spot, 1 hour, 11 minutes, 46. Another good day for Chris Boardman, 1 minute and 26 seconds down on Verbrugge. And in fact, Verbrugge's time is now being overtaken at the early time checks. The time check, which I can give you now, after the 13.5 kilometre check, Olano, fastest there, 16 minutes 15 seconds, equals Zuller, 16 minutes 15 seconds, Casero, 16 minutes 18 seconds, 3 seconds back for Verbrugge, who's leading at the moment at 4 seconds, 16.19, Nardello 16.21. Yet to go through that time check are some of the later starters behind Olano, people like Armstrong, and also the fastest man, Armstrong, at the back end. Not to get a time check for him yet, but I think Lance will be looking to do well we come through that particular point. The young man Hamilton's doing rather well, because he's gone through the second time check in second spot for the US Postal team, and by the time we came to the 42 kilometre point, Hamilton has now taken the lead. Yes, Stephen?
I just saw on the screen there, we saw Scartin, and I saw he was having trouble with his left gear cable, obviously having trouble with his big chain ring. He was pedaling, his pedaling action was changing a little bit, so obviously has some problems. I'm sure that's not going to help him a very lot either, because Orlano and Richard Vianca are both fighting for his place on general classification.
Yes, put you in the picture this morning. Armstrong was in the lead, 6 minutes 15 seconds, and the time check's coming up on your screen now, ahead of Escartin. Zuller was just 1 minute and 13 seconds behind Escartin on the general classification. I think it's quite possible that Zuller will leap over Escartin. But if we look back then at the time trial we had at Metz, Olano was there versus Escartin, and Olano beat Escartin at Metz by 4 minutes and 14 seconds. So Olano is the danger man. Can he leap over the top of Escartin? Can Escartin survive and stay on the podium? I certainly think the result could be Armstrong, Zuller, Escartin in Paris, but you never know. Olano is hovering there. He certainly, I think, will go and overtake Veron. The gap 2 minutes 49 seconds on the general classification, but way back in the first time trial he knocked 7 bells out of him by 4 minutes and 8 seconds. So Olano is the man to watch out for, and Escartin, not the great world's greatest time trial, hanging on to that third spot. Stephen, your prediction for today?
Well, looking at the way the wind is, I reckon it's got to be a good pedal that will win today, because there's an awful lot of wind, and mainly it turns around a little bit, but going out to have a 3/4 a headwind, into a headwind, once again 3/4 a headwind, and then you have a tailwind then for the final 15 kilometres. So it's going to be a guy that goes out pedaling, so when he turns around again, his legs are not saturated, and he can use a big gear and spin it very fast. I'm thinking notably of Armstrong, because he has his pedaling ability that we've seen in so much in the other time trials. This year, in this time trial, he must be my favourite. Second place, I think, should be Zule, and third place will be, I reckon, Orlando.
Well, I don't think I agree with you there. We can fall out and fight later. I'm bigger than you, so there we go. What did I put down in my predictions at the press centre last night? Zuller first, Armstrong second, and Murrow in third spot. I haven't seen him on my list so far, so perhaps I've got the third place wrong.
Murrow has made an awful lot of progress. He was very good in the first time to back in Metz, but at the same time, you must remember, we've gone through the Alps and the Pyrenees, and Murrow is not a 3-week stage race rider for the moment. He's coming on, he's getting stronger and stronger as the years go on, but I would not expect him to be up in the first few today. But I think that Lance Armstrong has a point to prove today. People are saying, I'm sure you're probably saying it yourself, Dave, that Alex Zule has to really prove himself today. He hasn't won a stage yet. He wants to win a stage. He's trying to show everybody, if I hadn't had the crash on the second day of the tour, I could be up here really fighting seriously for the first place with Armstrong. That's not the case. He's back 6 minutes down. He wants to win the stage, yes. But I think Lance Armstrong has an offer to show as well, because he wants to say kind of whatever to the French press because they've actually put him down over the last few weeks, and work with that now. But we're getting on now, and I'm glad that I would love to see Lance Armstrong win the stage today. Just kind of put a final. He's spoken out, he said verbally what he thought, and gave his own opinion on different things. And the next best way now to show everybody that everything is right is to do it physically on the bike.
Well, if you want to vote for Lance Armstrong today, there on your screen you can see now the votes. Cast your votes 0906 614 0024, and if you want to predict the winner today, just phone in on that number and you can win a superb Eurosport watch. I'm glad it's come at the end of the Tour de France. I'll just rip the piece of paper into 4 sections here. We've got one more to go, and at least you can enter that competition, but do so before 4:30. Hey, you've got about 5 minutes to go. They say 4:30 Central European time. I think we're on that at the deadline at the moment. We've been talking about the press and the attitude towards Lance Armstrong, and whilst you can watch the times coming up on your screen, I'm happy to welcome in the commentary point here some guests who are coming up to join us, and particularly Alan Rushton from the events group Sport for Television, and I know that Alan's got a few things to say about the press and what's been happening back there. But before we talk about that, Alan, what's going on? I've seen the chaps here from Malaysia. You'll be walking around here talking to me about the Pro Tour. What's happening in Great Britain? I know you drive the Pro Tour, you're the organisation behind it, and this tour in Langkawi. What's the situation for next year?
Hello. We've had a look at changing the date of the Pro Tour, and we've gone for a date in August, at the end of August, the last week, which coincides only with the Tour of Spain. So before we were up against the Tour of Italy, the Tour of Germany, Midi Libre in France, and it was difficult. This is much better, and in talking to teams this week, it's very clear that they like the idea.
Good, so we're going to see a lot of top riders. Again, you had a good turnout this year in the Pro Tour, and it seemed to me from the reports I saw, because it did clash with the Tour of Italy, lots of people turned out along the route. How's the sponsors feeling about the reaction this year?
Well, certainly the number of people out there was greatly increased, and one of the ideas of the August switch would be to come back into the school holidays, and when families are together, and also the weather's a little bit more reliable as well. But it's, the race has progressed markedly from on the first edition, and I think there's still a way we can go with it to build a truly world-class event in the UK.
We're looking forward to that, Alan, but you're not only involved in the Pro Tour in Great Britain with the big sponsor Prudential, but also the Tour of Langkawi. How's that going?
That's a race that really has developed, and we got involved in it a couple of years ago. It's about 4 years old now, and it is quite superb. It's a world-class race out in Asia, in Malaysia, with sun's cracking the flags in the middle of January at about 35 degrees, and we've been working now in an exchange system. We've had a number of the people we work with over there working with us in the UK. We've taken them around the Tour de France, and they're looking at all the mechanics of the race and how it's put together, and we've just struck a long-term deal that now take us well into the 2004 in development of the race. That's good.
Can I come?
You certainly can.
Now then, Alan, you also know you're doing the track World Championships in October next year, but look at Armstrong on the screen now. I haven't seen the English press, except I had a couple of faxes sent to me with people who objected to some of the headlines. You've seen what's going on out there. We're watching Lance Armstrong ride now. You and I know him. Some people know him better than you and I do. But what's been the reaction back in the UK? Because I've heard 1 or 2 people have been reading bad press. What's been going on? I know the French press has been, should be saying, disgusting.
Well, first of all, there are some very disgusting things being said about the whole situation, but you've got to put it in context. Last year's tour was, after the Irish start, was pretty disastrous from a media point of view. The sport clearly has had a problem, and it's had to address that problem. Now we have a fantastic situation, which is really good, that teams realise that they must have a moral ethic to what they're doing. They must drive out the problem of doping from the sport. It's got to go. And you had a situation earlier this week where a team is dismissing its own rider, be a stage winner or not, for going to a non-authorised doctor and all the rest of it. In the case in France with Armstrong, we find ourselves in the middle of a media battle. The Tour de France is owned by a media group, and you have other media groups which aren't in ownership of the Tour slamming into it. It's like the Mirror and the Sun, and they're putting anybody and everybody onto the race to try to do it.
Well, that's the background to the big Tour de France, which attracted the interest from the press right across the world. We've been talking to Alan Rushton. My guest lining up now. I'm David Duffield. Join us after this. Well, whilst you've been away, we've had a tremendous turn-up for the books here. Hamilton from the US Postal Team coming in, and you watch him rocketing down here. He eventually had a time of 1:09.52 to take over from Verbrugge, who started way back earlier on today. He had a time of 1:10.20, and it was Tyler Hamilton on the US Postal that came through 1:09.52. Tyler Hamilton came good towards the end. He wasn't showing on the first time check. He came to second spot on the second time check, took over on the third time check, and now he's rocketed into first spot. So Hamilton leads at the moment, the time 1:09.52. In second spot is Verbrugge from the Lotto team, 1:10.20. Third, Gonzalez Galdiano of the Toulouse Seguros team, 1:10.45, and then back behind that is Jens Voigt from the Credit Agricole team, 1:11.02, and still in fifth spot is O'Grady, 1:11.04, and way back at the moment in ninth, struggling to stay in the top 10, Britain's Chris Boardman, a time of 1 hour, 11 minutes and 46 seconds. He's 1 minute and 54 seconds down, Chris, on that great time from Tyler Hamilton, who really burst upon the scene last year in the Tour de France when on that very twisty and difficult course down there on the first of the time trials, he finished in second spot, so he's done it yet again today.
Well, it's a fabulous time then by Hamilton, because you must take into consideration that Lance Armstrong has the yellow jersey now for 12 days nearly, 13 days nearly, and he has been one of his main support men. Every climb he went over, Hamilton was around or very, very near Armstrong, so he's put in an incredible effort to work, like a real workhorse for Lance over the last 12-13 days, and today to put in a good time like that, which I think will be in top 5 position in a time trial today. It's an incredible performance by the man himself.
Well, he did take over Armstrong the yellow jersey on last Sunday, the 11th, and that was stage 8, and since then Armstrong's held the yellow jersey right the way through since stage 8. We're now on to stage 19, so 11 stages he's kept the yellow jersey, and you're quite right, young Hamilton together with Livingston been riding the mountains and going very well indeed to protect that yellow jersey of Lance Armstrong. This is the race of truth, the race against the watch. All the top men are out on the course. Let me just tell you now that we've got a time check at the 13.5 kilometre time check. Guess who's in the lead? Armstrong, 15 minutes and 59 seconds. He's punched 16 seconds out of Alano, 16 seconds out of Zuller, and Costello back into fourth spot, Verbrugge back into fifth. I wait with bated breath for the check at 28 kilometres. That's some way down the road now, another 15 k's to go, but Armstrong romping round here. So the first at that time check, Armstrong. Second, Alano and Zuller. Both have locked in combat, 16 seconds back on Armstrong. I think you predicted Armstrong to win today. I got him down, I think, his second spot, so perhaps sackcloth and ashes, Stephen.
Well, you know, I suppose it wouldn't be the first time you've been wrong in the Tour, Dave, so I'm going to say, well, here we go again. No, I think you're right. Your motives for putting Zule first were, I accept them, but I still think that a guy like Lance Armstrong with the yellow jersey on his back, with all the kind of the fight he has in him to win this stage today, I think that it isn't like a normal yellow jersey situation whereby the yellow jersey has won so much so far and he can just kind of put the kind of stage on the back burner and do what he can. Lance Armstrong really wants to win this stage today.
And we saw then on the screen while Steve was talking, Lance just going along, a super shot from a helicopter, picking up on the motorcycles, taking pictures of him as well. Round this course, fairly flat, just the odd occasional climb, a lot of crosswinds, and not a particularly good day really for riders, considering it's very hot indeed. But undoubtedly Hamilton, 1:09.52, has set the scene for the US Postal Team, who looks at the moment to go into triumph into Paris at the end of this race. Today, this stage is the stage 19, Futuroscope, 57 kilometres. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We've had many guests popping up, and right alongside me now, we don't see many ladies in the Tour de France. Marguerite, is it Lazel or Lazel? You must correct me if I got it wrong, but she writes for cycling. First of all, Marguerite, how did you become interested in cycling before we talk about actually riding? I'm not about the magazine, but how did you get involved with these chaps going around with their shaved legs?
Well, I saw a cycling race on TV, and I can't honestly remember which one it was, and I thought, oh, that's quite good, I'll have a go at that. So I went out and bought a bike and haven't looked back since.
I understand that Russell Williams has had certain influence on your career. Put us in the picture.
Well, I first met Russell down at Herne Hill track, and I used to go to the ladies and juniors training sessions, so he sort of helped me out learning to ride the track and gave me all sorts of top tips for getting jobs in the industry.
And you applied for a job with Cycling Weekly. The magazine comes out every Thursday. By the way, I buy my copy. This is not a plug for them, so I still pay for it. When did you actually start to write? Were you a journalist before you worked for Cycling, and how long have you been working for Cycling Weekly?
Well, I did a journalism course at university, and while I was doing that, I went in and did work experience at the Weekly, sort of making the tea and that sort of thing. And then when I finished, they said I could have a job, so I went full-time there, so a year ago now.
So you're 1 year into the cycling riding, and we're watching here Alano on our screen coming up to check at 42 kilometres. We'll come back to Margaret in just a minute. We wait this time to come to the fastest we've got so far is Hamilton, 52.23, Verbrugge, 52.43, and let's see what Alano's going to do at this particular one. He has to do something today. He's got to really try and win this time trial, I'd have thought. The first time check we had, he was 16 seconds down on Armstrong, and he was there locked in combat with Zuller. And in fact, at the 28 kilometre mark, we've got Zuller going through there in first spot at 35 minutes and 55 seconds. Alano coming through here, and he's not as good as Hamilton. This is not a good day for Alano, and so my goodness, it's a real tip. Stephen, what a day, hey? Hamilton's just set the whole thing alight.
He has, yeah. Hamilton has put in some good performances before, but today I would have thought that Hamilton, after all the work he's done over the last few weeks for Lance Armstrong, I thought he would have been just quite content to ride. But looking at the position here of Orno on a screen here, absolutely unbelievable athlete, really shaped and moulded on his bike to basically give him the best penetration in the air and make his best aerodynamic position possible. He is, by the way, wearing the World Champion jersey as World Champion time trialist. So to be some 30-odd seconds down on Hamilton there, with only halfway through the stage, is an incredible performance by Hamilton.
And I think it says a lot too for the US Postal, because they've ridden so hard to support this man on your screen now, Lance Armstrong, who really is thundering around here, an American bicycle riding across the roads in France, and many just could not believe it. It's been 8-9 years since Greg LeMond was the last victor of the
1990.
I'll just quickly check it.
89-90, Dave.
That LeMond won it.
89 and 90.
Yes, it was. He won it first of all in
85.
That's right. Then he got it 89 and 90. Came back for an accident. It seems to be a thing that happens out there, doesn't it, with the Americans?
And what an accident, Dave. The guy was almost dead.
Yeah,
he got shot. He was on his deathbed for a couple of months. Then he came back, then won a Tour de France, and then a second Tour de France in succession.
And here we are, Armstrong coming back from cancer, fought his way back. Even when he was having treatment, his chemotherapy treatment, which anybody who's been through it knows it's a terrible thing to go through, he still went riding his bike. And I've been disgusted with the press attitude, and some people trying to find and say this man is doing something naughty, because Lance has shown determination ever since he was a 17-year-old triathlete.
But Dave, I must say, in all fairness, in the last few days, since Lance Armstrong came out publicly and started defending himself, the press have actually died down a little bit. I don't know about the British press, but there will always be some British journalists out there looking for a scandal, looking for a sensation. But in general, the French press here in a moment have come to admire Lance Armstrong for his courage, rather than picking in little things that might have been or could have been and what could be, and making a story out of it.
Well, I'm going to put my guest on the spot here, Margaret, who's now come into journalism just over 12 months ago for Cycling Weekly. You didn't talk about the ins and outs, Margaret, of this thing, but from a journalist point of view and a female journalist point of view, I know you've come on the tour, gone back to Britain, come back in again. Just how does it strike you as a woman?
Well, I try not to think about it any differently than if I wasn't a girl, because to be honest, it's just a job, and I sort of think that the best thing is to try and be as professional as possible about it and not let it affect you at all. I don't know if you know Emma O'Reilly, this one year for US Postal. I've spoken to her quite a bit, and she said that she had a bit of a hard time when she first started out as a female soigneur, but at the end of the day, you just got to do your job, and if you can do it well, then people will accept you, and you can just get on with it.
Now then, so you've been doing your job, you've been out there watching it. Come on, Is this blowing your brain, watching this, travelling with the race? Because to me, the Tour de France is, the great auditorium for cycling, eh?
Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, anyone who's watched it on TV knows that it's a fantastic event, and when you actually come out and see it in real life, it absolutely blows you away. It's just fantastic.
What exactly do you have to do then as a journalist? You've been writing the stories up, filing them back into Grapeman, and when it's finished and you've done the thing there, what's your next thing you have to do back at with Cycling Weekly?
Well, I've already started work on things for after the tour already. There's a few people that we want to do stories on for issues coming up later in the year, so I have to go and sort of talk to them and make sure they're happy about that, and then get that all sort of set up ready for when the Autumn Classics come along.
What's the reaction from these cyclists to a female reporter coming up and asking these questions? Are they sort of gaga, or do they just treat it like just another journalist?
They're usually all fine. I mean, as long as you ask sensible questions, they're willing to answer sensibly, and we get along great.
Good. Now then, up there we can see Armstrong now, Zuller, Verbrugge. That's the position at the moment on your screen, and so we'll be watching this go right the way through, and thanks indeed for Margaret to come along here, and we're going to watch now to see who's going to win the time trial today. It looks like Armstrong at the moment is certainly hammering away there, but the question is, can Escartin hang on to his third spot? Zuller now looks like he's going to move into second overall. Well, you rejoin us as Armstrong goes under the 25 kilometres to go on this, the 57-kilometre time trial stage, the Tour de France, stage 19, Futurescope to Futurescope, and it's a very hot day in the saddle as far as these riders are concerned. The position is that Armstrong has been fastest at the first time check, 13.5 kilometres, 15 minutes and 19 seconds. Alano and Zuller locked in combat in second and third spot, both of them 16 seconds back. By the time Armstrong has romped through the 28-kilometre mark, Armstrong there leading by 21 seconds from Zuller, and no information yet so far about how Alana was going. So the situation changing on our screens as Hamilton is waiting with bated breath to see if he'll finish in the top half dozen. The fastest time so far at the finish is Hamilton from the US Postal, 1 hour, 9 minutes and 52 seconds. Verbrugge, the early leader, in second spot, 1 hour, 10 minutes and 20 seconds. And in third spot, Gonzalez Galdeano, 1 hour, 10:45. Chris Boardman begin to drop off the leaderboard now. He's down in ninth spot, 1 hour, 11 minutes and 46 seconds. He's 1 minute and 54 back on Hamilton, and that situation can change before we get towards the end. We've been having guests on the programme throughout this time trial. Marguerite alongside me from Cycling Weekly's come across. Marguerite, I know you've got work to do and people to interview, but is there one point about this Tour de France that stands out to you looking at it now from being inside it rather than outside it? I mean, you've been following cycling a bit now. Here you are, you're on the Tour de France, and you say, gosh, I'll remember this race for that reason. What stands out in your mind?
Well, I think Lance Armstrong's performance, obviously out of this world, and I know back in the office we've had so many letters about him, and it's a real tonic after what happened last year. All the British cyclists are 100% behind him. I think he's absolutely fantastic, and it's great to actually be able to see him in action over here.
You'll be here tomorrow, presumably, as well, when we're on Champs-Élysées?
I will.
And I've been urging people to come out, as we're now watching Zuller here begin to catch his 3-minute man, to come and wave the Stars and Stripes or the Union Jacks. I'm sure it's going to be a great occasion. Yes,
that's Dufo with David, huh?
Dufo, yeah.
So it's for 2 minutes. It's very, very strange that they were both of them are two Swiss riders. So I'm sure Dufo, when he's going past, when Zuller is going past Dufo, he wouldn't mind being able to hold on. But look how fast.
But he wouldn't say it, because these two, by the way, Steve, a little interesting point here is that when they talk, they converse in Spanish. I don't know if you know that, because one is a German-speaking Swiss, that's Zuller. One is a French-speaking Swiss, that's Dufo. And when they talk together, they speak in Spanish because they're a Spanish team.
Both of them rode for a Spanish team before,
right,
yeah.
And they can't speak. I think it's amazing, isn't it? Right, that's the international way of cycling. Marguerite, thanks for coming with us today and being with us. We hope to see you tomorrow, and on your way back into London. We might come and see you sometime, but what's your ambition then in cycling? Do you want to be the editor of the newspaper? Do you want to go on? Where do you see yourself? In my job one day?
Well, that would be quite nice, but to be honest, I'm having such a good time what I'm doing now. I haven't really got any aims for moving on because I'm just enjoying myself too much. Good.
And what about women's cycling anyway? Do you cover that? Do you see that growing as well?
Well, hopefully. I mean, we cover it quite a bit with the weekly, so I don't think it'll ever be, quite as spectacular, and on the TV at least, as the men's cycling, but it's Graham will time, I think.
Okay, and tomorrow when you finish, you just come and tell me quietly which is the most gorgeous man in the race, okay?
It's you, David, obviously.
No. Bye then, Margaret. Thank you for that.
I'm going home.
That's it. Steve Roche. That's total embarrassment time then. Back with the racing. And yes, we're serious here, but sometimes we have to have a bit of light relief, because if you're working here, as we are, for the thick end of 3 weeks, in fact, over 3 weeks, you have to have some sense of humour. We watch Veronk then coming through here now. Not a mountain in sight. He's got the polka dot jersey on his shoulders. Nobody can take it off him. He smashed everybody out of sight. That's one part of the competition which is over and done with. Looks like the green jersey will also stay with Eric Zabel. The yellow jersey of Lance Armstrong has so far set the fastest time at the first and the second time check. So right now it looks like Armstrong will have no problem at all in riding into Paris in that yellow jersey. But Veronk here, a bit down the pan, Stephen.
3.5 minutes, David.
He's got to be careful, by the way, because I did some sums that Alano is 2 minutes and 49 seconds down on Veronk in 8th spot, and it looks as if Alano, if he keeps going, Veronk is 5th overall, could be well pushed down, because Alano could go over the top of him, because 2:49 back, the way that Alano's going, he could well be over the top of Veronk and pushing him down a bit. In fact, Alano could go from 8th into 5th spot. Dufo ahead of him. Well, I don't know if he'll catch him, but certainly the thing could change quite a bit. But no doubt about Armstrong, determined to smash everybody out of sight. The battle then going on behind him. Escartin this morning, 6:15 down. No way he would catch up with Lance Armstrong. Alex Zuller, just a gap between himself and Escartin, 1 minute 13. So I expect Zuller to overtake Escartin. But will Escartin hang on to 3rd spot? Can Alano come up there and challenge him? It's all.
Well, I reckon, Dave, that this Tour de France, I think it's you have the habit of getting a time trial the second last day in a tour for the last number of years now, and I must say that this must be the first year, and as far as I can remember anyway, that there could be so many changes on this second last day. Like normally arriving into the tour, the last time trial in the Tour de France, and you kind of look at the GC sheet and say, oh yeah, okay, the first three are going to stay okay, and maybe the 10th place might go to 9th place maybe, but everyone except Armstrong was really, their places are really on the line here. So we've never seen a final Tour de France time trial with so much on the cards as this time trial today in Futurescope.
And this is a time check now at 42 kilometres. Hamilton's got the fastest time so far at 52 minutes and 23 seconds as a fast minute coming through. And here we see Zuller powering his way along the course on that unusual Sword Pinarello bicycle. And I'm very pleased the British Cycling Federation has said that they will stay with today's regulations. So if somebody's got a bike like that, they can still race it in BCF rules next year, provided you don't ride internationally on that bicycle. We now see Armstrong just thundering past Escartin. Wow.
That's like a sword, Dave, eh?
3 minutes he's caught him for.
And look how fast he went past there. And it's still only, little under halfway to go. About 20k to go.
Yeah, and Alano's got to go straight there. But Escartin has really got, again, it's amazing as we watch Zuller come through now, that Escartin, not your world's greatest time trials by any means, he's got to lift his game today to battle to stay there in the 3rd spot. I'm looking down, in fact, Escartin in the time trial at Metz, he finished 50th overall, 6 minutes and 36 seconds down Lance Armstrong. Lance has now caught him for 3 minutes, but they're just, I think Lance has only got about 18, 19 kilometres to go. So this man Escartin is riding his socks off.
Oh, he is, yeah, he's doing a good ride. But the fact of Lance Armstrong being in front of him now, it might help him to not to lose too much more time.
Well, talk about time as we watch Escartin trying to hang on. Well, he can't hang on to Armstrong, not allowed. I had a email, in fact, last night. You're not going to believe this. Another 23 emails turned up. The man knocked on my door at 10 o'clock and said, Mr. Duffield, some more emails and faxes. 23 of them turned up. So I then worked to 1 o'clock this morning going through them. I may not be able to deal with them all today. Belly comes in third, 1:10.40 down. But I did get a question way back from Catherine McGinty. Was that the goat? McGinty's goat. Catherine McGinty, who said, did I know the quickest overall time in modern history of the Tour de France, and which did it happen? And I then had a fax of an email from David Price, who said that, to my knowledge, Pedro Delgado of Spain holds the record. The time was 84 hours, 27 minutes and 53 seconds. Now, I don't know whether we're answering here the fastest time, because 84 hours for Pedro Delgado depends on the length of the course. You see, I've been looking at the average speed, and I went through all my books, and at the moment today, this race, the new Tour, is over 40 kilometres per hour. As at this morning, 40.174. The average speed of the winning time so far from Hamilton is in excess of 48 kilometres an hour. Going in tomorrow to Paris, providing they roll at a reasonable speed, we could have a record average speed this year. And looking back in the books, we've had several of the tours, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them have exceeded 39 kilometres per hour, and the fastest one in that series was last year, 1998, when the average was 39.983, and before that, 97, 39.23, 96, 39.23 as well, and 95, 39.19, and way back in 1972, 39.5. So the speed is now rocketed upwards. It can be done with many things, shorter stages, faster stages, better roads, but in reality, we are looking probably at the fastest Tour de France in living memory.
Well, Dave, before anybody at home starts jumping to conclusions, when I say at home, and anybody speaking English, anybody listening into this programme, especially in Ireland or in England, people that might have been maybe doubting this man here, Lance Armstrong, as his natural ability and everything else. You must remember, this tour is the fastest, yes, okay, but you must take into consideration that after last year's goings on and everything else, the organisation of the tour this year decided to make a Tour de France easier. We've had 2 full rest days. We've only had 2 finishes on the mountains compared to 4 2 years ago, and there's only been 1 other Alpine stage and 1 other Pyrenees stage. Other than that, across the Massif Central, they were actually very rolly roads, nothing really hard. 5 days the first week, dead flat for the sprinters, so that does add to the average speed of the race. So don't start jumping to any conclusions. That is, I'm telling you, the main excuse for it.
Well, back then with Alano coming in here, he's been desperately trying to set the fastest time at the moment. The time of the US postal rider Hamilton at 1:09.52. He's not going to break that at all. In fact, he's struggling to stay in 3rd spot at the moment, and that could click back again if he's not careful. Not a good day then for Alano, as still some men back down there, like Zuller, like Armstrong, will be determined to push him down another spot. But he does finish in 3rd at the moment. Average speed 43.486 kilometres per hour, and it's 1:10.35.
1 minute 16 seconds, I was saying, Dave. It's incredible for the world time trial champion.
Yeah. I admire Alano. He's a great rider, but he has good days and bad days, doesn't he?
Yeah,
so you never know.
He seems to have good days on the one-day classics, and especially in the World Championships. Whereas this year's World Championships down in Verona, I reckon should be an appointment very important for him. And talking about the World Championships down in Verona, I got an invitation myself the other day from the organisation down there, and they're reuniting all of the living world champions down in Verona for the whole week. All expenses paid, because it is the last World Championships of the century. So they're actually looking to reunite them all and having one or two an opening ceremony and a couple of parties and that during the week. So I, of course, being a world champion myself, was invited to it. I thought it a very nice gesture, but only the Italians can do something like that. So I'm looking forward now to meeting all the other world champions of my generation and before
the Worlds open up, or the final weekend?
Opening ceremony.
Oh, right. That's about Tuesday, won't it? Tuesday. Right. Well, that's going to be some do. Here we go. The Hamilton now from US Postal leading at this particular time check, 52.23, and looks like we're going to find a change on your screen there, because
look at that time, Dave.
Yeah, 56.8. That man is just riding everybody up his wheel, eh? Well, an amazing performance by Lance Armstrong, showing that he is not going to go out of this race just coasting round. He's going to smash everybody out of sight. He's in the lead. Well, tremendous ride by Hamilton, giving 1:09.52, but this fellow ran him close. Casero coming in whilst we had the ad break. We watched this man come across the line, and a heart-stopping moment as far as US Post were concerned, but Casero driving hard towards the line, just didn't quite make it, and you see there 1:09.54, just a couple of seconds adrift of Hamilton, so that means he's in 2nd spot on the general classification at the moment. And back with Lance Armstrong on your screen, bashing around here, really setting a hot pace on all the time checks we had so far. Armstrong looks like he's going to really put up a time that will, I think, put everybody else in the shade, although right now there's not much shade at all. Tyler Hamilton still leading overall at the time check at the finish, 1:09.52. Alano's finished at 1:10.35. and so he is probably now struggling to be in fourth spot overall. And Armstrong really powering along the course, and there's no doubt about it, he wants to take this stage victory today, which will leave us just to finish into the Champs-Élysées in Paris on Sunday, when we will then have to see who's going to win the sprint on that occasion. But no doubt about it, Lance Armstrong is just showing everybody the way home here. Don't forget then, you can enter a competition to win one of our great watches by phoning up to predict the winner today. We're still keeping the lines open though, and I think somehow you have got a pretty good idea who could win today, because unless he falls off his bike, you might well see him on the screen now. So if you rush in and all phone up together, it'll probably jam the lines. But there we are then, still Lance Armstrong on his way round. Back with Zuller. Well, Zuller set off this morning 7 minutes 28 seconds down on Armstrong. He was 1 minute 13 seconds behind Escartin. He's now gone faster than Escartin, so that's put him into second spot. Escartin were under pressure from people like Duffield, people like Alano, but Escartin really wants to stay in that third spot. He didn't do a great time trial, Escartin, in the time trial at Metz, when he finished some 6 minutes and 36 seconds down on Armstrong. He really has to ride to try and stay in contention on that third spot overall. As Nardello coming through here. Well, it appears that we're having a few problems here with our computer. Sorry about that. Just a bit of a break to try and sort the thing out, but all going on the blink all over the place. So we'll take it off the screens at the moment. Nardello in 1:12.0, and that's put him then 3 minutes back on Hamilton. Hamilton not a great threat on the overall classification. He started this morning 25 minutes and 24 seconds down, so even though he's done a good time trial, he won't change his position more than maybe 1 or 2 places as we go back then to the Swiss rider Alex Zuller. Still then, the fastest man at the finish is Tyler Hamilton, 1:09.52, and a great ride then from Casero, the Spanish champion, 1:09.53 into second spot. Alano disappointingly 1:10.35, and the way they're going around this course, so we're watching Zuller here. Zuller could well and finish in second spot. I got him down probably to win the time trial today, but these circumstances, you never know what happens. 4 kilometres to go then for Alex Zuller. A great time trialist, a one-time man who's taken over the, remember him taking the prologue time trial in the Tour de France, and a man I've admired for many, many years, and he was one of those riders that got into all sorts of problems last year, but he's come back, he's served his sentence, and I think he's now showing his true worth. I don't know about you, Stephen, but I've been a long admirer of Zuller. He's I would say, unusual chap. He doesn't seem to have much outgoing extroverts about him, but when he gets on his bike, he can ride the mountains, he can ride the time trials. I like the bloke.
Well, I've known him a long time now, because he started basically back in '87, I think it was, when I was winning the Giro. I think Dule rode her as well. And I must say he was very, very impressive at the time. I thought maybe he might have done too much, because Mariano Sanz, his director sportif at the time, he owns it, him, made him ride basically everything that was going. And I felt that maybe it was too much for this young fella who was only in his first year professional. But since then, he's had some great performances. He won a Tour of Spain. He should have won a second one. And we've had a lot of hope put on him over the last couple of years. He hasn't actually shown too much of what we expected in him. But he has nevertheless been a very great performer. And unfortunately, he's very unlucky that he falls off a lot as well, due to the fact that he wears like bottle lens glasses, like very, very heavy glasses, and which doesn't help him, of course, in the rain or crosswinds or anything where very split-second timing as regards where you should place yourself on the road is involved.
Well, also, he's quite a sort of tall chap, isn't he? Got long, lanky legs, and so he sits rather high up in the sky. So, again, tall blokes aren't always the best when it comes to balancing themselves around the corners, but certainly given a time trial, he's going to go very hard indeed. The time at we've now got the time point 4. Zula's done the best time here at 1:04:15, and that's best time we've got there at that particular point. Then the third time check we had, Armstrong went through in 50 minutes and 55 seconds, 24 seconds ahead of Zula. So there's a great battle going on between these two at the moment. So Zula's gone ahead of Armstrong. He started out some 6 minutes ahead of Armstrong, so we'll be getting his time checks coming through. And if Armstrong wants to win this one, at least he's got the advantage of knowing what Zula's done.
Well, that's right too, and Lance Armstrong is, of course, last man on the road, so he'll have his letter sportif back in the car, being quite aware of the results, not only from the race radio, but also he has the French television in his car, and the French television have checkpoints all over the route, so he'll be able to get the checkpoints, the exact checkpoints from the French television, and be able then to give the information then to Lance Armstrong to let him decide what he wants to do himself. If he has the legs to push harder to try and win the stage, or if he's just content to say, okay, well, I've won if I can finish off today, I have a good chance of winning the Tour de France. No one's going to come and get me from behind, so just do what I can.
And there he is riding along here. Tomorrow we have that ceremonial run in towards Paris with the laps up and down the Champs-Élysées. Many who will be looking forward to setting off maybe tonight or first thing tomorrow morning to get there to see Lance Armstrong. So if you're going to make your trip out there, bring your stars and stripes, bring your Union Jacks, because it's an English-speaking rider who's going to win the Tour de France, barring accidents. And I don't ever want to predict things, because when I first covered the Tour de France for Eurosport in 1989, I remember when Laurent Fignon was there ahead in the yellow jersey. My producer said to me, David, it's not over yet. And so I said, OK, we kept it going, and Greg LeMond won by 8 seconds. But keep our fingers crossed then for Greg LeMond, for Lance Armstrong. I think he's going to get this one. The gap is so enormous. This man here will ride up and down the Champs-Élysées tomorrow in the polka dot jersey. Yet again, he's got that coveted King of the Mountains pride. Richard Virenque, if I say it, I get people shouting at me, housewife's favourite, because he's loved here, particularly by the ladies, for his debonair attitude. And I know that Stephen Rose sometimes thinks that if he only rode a bit more with his head rather than his legs, he might take the yellow jersey at some time in the future. But he's not the world's greatest time trial.
Well,
this could be different. He's going to lose a few places here.
Nardello and Casero, Dave, he's going to lose those places on the general classification.
So Virenque, the crowd cheering.
Puts him out of 7th place overall, roughly.
Wow, he could drop down today, couldn't he?
Yeah.
So Virenque then coming through in 1:14:05. And he's going to lose a bit of time here, because Virenque this morning was 5th spot overall, and Nardello behind him, 1:39 behind. Casero just
down to 8th.
Yes. Wow, he comes. He's going to get it. Could be the fastest time. Alex Zula riding in 1:08:26 takes the lead.
Great performance there by Zula, Dave. 1 minute ahead of Hamilton. But it's amazing. Last night we're looking at who's going to maybe win the stage and everything else, and we're saying what the best time we thought was going to be won in, and everybody was putting there about 1 hour and 10 minutes, whereas nobody ever thought last night that the winner would get down under the 1 hour 10 minutes, whereas you have Zula there now gone 2 minutes, practically 2 minutes under 1 hour 10 minutes, and Hamilton also been under the 1 hour 10 minutes.
Well, at Metz, over 56.5 kilometres, the time was 1:08:36 on a course, and Armstrong won that one. And now we've got Zula 1:08:26, almost the same time, within 10 seconds of what was done by Lance Armstrong in Metz just on the 11th of July on the stage then, when we had our time trial over virtually the same sort of distance, just about 0.5 kilometres shorter. Dufo coming in here, well, he's not going to be happy with that one, I don't think.
4 minutes down, Dave. And this morning I spoke to Laurent Defoe, and he was telling me he has re-signed for another 2 more years now with the Seiko Cannondale team. He was saying that last year when he had his little problems, very few teams would even touch him, whereas Seiko Cannondale gave him the benefit of the doubt and took him on board and looked after him ever since. He's very happy in the atmosphere of the team, and he was asked to sign again, so he negotiated a 2-year deal, which will bring him up to 2002.
So that's the position as we've got Armstrong out on the road. The fastest time still then with Alex Zula, 1:08:26, and looking good at the moment.
Look at his position, Dave. The position of Lance Armstrong here on his bike, and the way he pedals turns those pedals around, absolutely incredible. Very good as well in the line he's taken. Watch the line here in the right-hand corner here. Cuts the corner, well, stays about a metre out from the curb, which is very, very good. Means staying out of all the gravel and any grit which might be accumulating in the gutter. Round to go again. There we are, right down, right, sweeps right around again. keeping a very, very good, very clean line, staying in harmony with his bike.
Well, according to the time check I've got here, that Skartin going through the first check 16:43, lost 28 seconds to Zuller, who was third on general, and it looks to me as if we might find Skartin dropping off his third spot into second. Skartin went through the second kilometre check at 37:44, and that meant that Zuller had now taken over the second spot on general classification, but this man still in yellow looks like he's going to take it. So keep your fingers crossed for Skartin. He's got to ride very hard in this time trial today to stay there in third spot.
There we see Lance there, he went around a little bit wide on the corner. You see there, we came in a little bit fast into the corner and was taken a little bit over to the right hand side of the road, over into the right hand gutter, because he was actually trying to avoid the shore, I think, on the middle of the road.
Well, at the third time check, 42 kilometres, Armstrong went through there at a time of 50 minutes and 55 seconds. It was the best time so far, 24 seconds ahead of Zuller. And at the moment then, waiting at the finish, can the position change? You see on your screen there the overall circumstance regarding the overall classification after point number 4. Armstrong still just marginally ahead of Zuller. Can he still come in towards the finish and maintain the momentum? Here on his Trek bicycle, which comes out from, that Trek bikes are also made in Carlow in Ireland, and I had this little letter here from Frank Lanigan. He said, a geriatric cyclist from Carlow in Ireland. Hey, come on, Frank, there's no such thing as a geriatric cyclist. We just ride slower and admire the countryside. Thanks for that then, saying that might be the first time Trek and Shimano have won the Tour de France. We look forward to that tomorrow. Keep your fingers crossed then, as we have Armstrong still in yellow, riding along here and in towards the end of the stage finish at Futuroscope. 57 kilometres to be covered. By the way, we're starting here next year, the Tour de France. I suppose I might as well get a tent and stay here for 12 months, Stephen, because we're starting here next year. If you haven't really got up to date with it, the Tour de France starts in Futuroscope next year, and we'll be here for the start on the 1st of July will be the stage on the against the clock over 12 kilometres. Interesting here, Stephen, that the prologue time trial, 12 kilometres, not the usual short one we have. There must be a special reason for that. I think they normally like us 1 kilometre to go for Armstrong, to have a bit less than that. But 1st of July, year 2000, here in Futuroscope will be the start of the Tour de France. And on the Sunday, there'll be a loop, 190 kilometres through Vienne, coming through the little village on the outside. And then the 3rd of July, off we go up into Brittany. So Lance Armstrong, can he come back next year, defend that yellow jersey? Here to Futuroscope, where an amazing place it is, set way out the countryside near Poitiers. And today the people have gathered from far and wide. Enormous crowd have turned out to watch Lance Armstrong come through. They've been here since the crack of dawn this morning, cheering everything that's moved on 2 wheels. And the moment Armstrong coming in here to try and topple the fastest time we got so far. And here he comes down the straight, and the time 1:08.26 to beat. Can Armstrong do it? It looks good at the moment.
He hasn't even slowed up at all, David. He's been so energetic and so visually fresh right from the start of the time trial today.
So Armstrong determined to topple the time of Zuller, 1:08.26 to beat, and he's coming down here. Yes, he's going to get it, and the whole of the crowd here applauding the battling man from Texas. The US postal rider from America is going to take yet another time trial. He took the prologue time trial 3 weeks ago at the start at Puy de Fou. He took the time trial in Metz. He won the stage history, and he's now won the time trial at Futuroscope with a time of 1:08, 17.33 at an average speed of 50.085 kilometres per hour. Phenomenal.
Not bad, Dave, huh? Not bad. Absolutely an incredible speed, given that the wind today was fairly strong going out, and then reasonably kind of strong coming back. But going out, you had never really got a full tailwind. It was either 3/4 or a headwind. So, but coming back then, only 15k, you had a tailwind. So a fabulous performance by Armstrong. They're getting over 50 kilometres an hour average.
That is over 30 miles an hour. And if I look back at the time trials of more than 20 kilometres, Greg LeMond holds a record at 54.5 on that run-in, only 24.5 kilometres. Miguel Indurain had the 52 over 64 kilometres in Tourcoing. Indurain again, 64 kilometres in 1994. Tony Rominger, 48 kilometres way back in 1993. Jan Ullrich in Bordeaux, Libourne, and Indurain again. So he's now joined the elite, hasn't he? Tremendous performance by Armstrong, who's up there with those people who've done more than 50 kilometres an hour. And Skartin coming in 1:12.28. We have to do some quick sums here to make sure he's kept his third spot, but certainly Escartin has ridden again a superb time trial, because he's just some 4 minutes back on Armstrong. And if we look back at the time he did it at Metz, Escartin then was over 6 minutes 36 seconds back. So let's take anything away from the people who finished in second and third spot today. Armstrong smashed the opposition, but the rest had to ride their socks off to stay up there, particularly Zuller and Escartin, to maintain their positions in the top three. But the day belongs to this man on your screens, who just shown everybody that undoubtedly he's the best rider in the 99 Tour de France.
What a turn of the tables, Dave, for our yellow jersey here, Lance Armstrong, from 2 years ago being told he's hasn't got long to live, and then coming out then and doing the ride he's done here at the Tour de France so far. Absolutely incredible turn of the tables.
Well, there is the position on your screens. Zuller second, Hamilton in fact in third spot. Good ride by him. I didn't expect that at all, and I think he's surprised a number of people, and he's great talent for the future. Costero, good rider, put him into fourth spot. Alano back in sixth, disappointed I think with that one, but look down there at the bottom, young O'Grady into 10th spot, really battling for some points in the green jersey competition, and that battle will renew tomorrow. Can O'Grady win the sprint and the Champs-Élysées? Can he get himself some more points and narrow the gap between himself and Zabel? So this one jersey, the yellow one, looks like it's on the shoulders of Armstrong for tomorrow and on the presentation of the Champs-Élysées. We also know the polka dot jersey won't change as far as Veronk is concerned. The green jersey, I think, will go to Zabel at the end of it all, but O'Grady has not stopped battling all the way through, nor this man. This fellow Hamilton rode his heart out in the mountains for Lance Armstrong, and he's come back to do a superb ride in the time trial. And to the champion of Spain, Costero, some new talents to come. For Brugger on your screen now, the man who set some of the fastest times early on, the young Lotto rider. And this man, the world time trial champion, gave his all today, but it wasn't enough. So Alano is not up there in the podium place at all. There's amazing park here. I suggest you do book yourself some holiday and come down here next year for the start of the Tour de France, because this is an amazing place. They've got superb cinematograph facilities here. It's an unusual world to come down to. The kids will love it, by the way, so why don't you come down for the start of the Tour de France next year and be here with us. And there you can see on the screen that the overall position, Veronk now dropped back into 8th spot for the 5th he had this morning. Escartin still in the top 3, dropped into 3rd as we expect him to do, but he stayed there in the top 3 place. Dufo is 4th, Costero 5th. Good time trial today. Alano tried to climb up there into 4th spot, didn't quite make it. Just a narrow gap then separating from a place up there just behind the top 3. Nardello holding on to his position, Veronk dropping back a little bit, not unsurprisingly, and Belli and Perron bringing up the 9th and 10th spot on the general classification. But going into tomorrow's run into Paris, this man on your screen, convincingly the leader, and I'm sure we'll have the ceremonial little ride along when they all set up at the front with the green, the yellow and the points jersey, and they'll all respect his performance. And Stephen, you have had the yellow jersey in the Tour de France. You've taken the pink jersey in the Tour of Italy. You've taken the jersey as well as the world champion. But the pressure has not only been physical, but mental, hasn't it, with this man, eh?
Absolutely unbelievable. Yeah, it's very, very hard the last few days, because he doesn't know himself what actually can he do, whether the form is going to maintain right through to the end, or whether it might leave him after the Pyrenees or the Alps or whatever. But he's held form right through, which is very impressive.
And tomorrow he's going to ride into sunshine. Look at that, 28 degrees. The sun will shine on the righteous on the Champs-Élysées. I hope that many of you will come across and join in the celebrations for Lance Armstrong as he runs in to finish. We'll be picking up most of the back end of the race as it hits Paris, coming in past Eurosport's headquarters at Issy-les-Moulineaux, over the River Seine, and running along into the centre of the town. So it's going to be a great ceremonial ride for Lance Armstrong into Paris. I will be there on the finish line. I hope you will be either with us on Eurosport's coverage and or be there up and down the Champs-Élysées. For Stephen Roche and myself, it's time to say, on this, the penultimate day of the Tour de France, thanks to your company. We hope you join us tomorrow. Until then, au revoir. Well, the main group seem at the moment to have resigned themselves to letting that breakaway group go away, because it's 55 seconds, I think, now. It's coming over our headphones. They're really forcing the pace. And the group then, with they took off with 7 laps to go. When they come to this time, they'll see the sign 6 laps to go. And here they are. Most of them been working. David being particularly at the front in the red, white and blue. Well, I'll be getting the time check because they come through here. I've got the watch running on that last lap to see what they're doing. And it's 59 seconds back to the chase group, and it seems to have settled itself down now. The front group aren't going quite as fast as they used to do, and the back group aren't going either. So it's gone past 7:22 for this lap, this one where they went to it. So Telecom starting to work then. They obviously decide their man down there isn't good enough for them to leave him out there to fry. Hulot moving through in the greyish pants for La France de Jeu. Chaffray for the pink and white. Lanfranchi, the smaller rider with the blue handlebar tape. Sivakov for Big Matt. So that time it's 7:57 was the lap time. That's unofficial, by the way. Lap time 7:57 on my watch. Running down the riders again. Davian wearing number 3, riding for the Credit Agricole team in the red, white and blue. Chaffray in the pink and white colour for Telecom, number 27. Lanfranchi with a whitish coloured jersey with the little splatters on the one side of it for the Mappe Quick Step team. He's number 35. Number 76, you can pick him out easy enough because he's in the National Championship jersey of Switzerland. That's Armin Mayer. The red colours riding for the Psycho Cannondale team. 82 is from the Lotto Movistar team, and that's Fabien Devail. As the main group come through here, and the gap is for around 50 seconds, 53 on our screen. Armstrong sitting near the front with his team round about him. They're keeping out of harm's way. Just a quick look then at Robbie McEwen for the Rabobank team. 50 seconds is coming the official time over headphones.
Yeah, I reckon, Dave, what'll happen now, the Mappe rider, Lanfranchi, will stop riding now as well, because once you see the Mappe riders riding behind, they're not going to have a rider riding in the front as well.
Well, Devail probably thinks there's too many here. Voitu's been pretty active all the way through, jumps after him, so...
Yeah, they're splitting up now as well, but it's normal. This group cannot go on the way it is at the moment. Yeah, it's they're not getting on at all together.
So still those riders, 9 men in the lead. My apologies, Sebastian Hino. He's the one riding in the Credit Agricole team colours. And he's gone onto the front now. So Sebastian Hino, followed by Armin Mayer, followed by Morin for France de Jeu in the grey pants, followed the rider from the Polti team, Barassi. And Davian going again.
Yeah, he sits here bluffing, Davey. He kind of goes and stops. Although
it's not the way to drive this along, is it?
No, there's no confidence there. There's no confidence there, Dave. So there's until this group either gets away, either 2 or 3 guys get away from this group and ride together, or else they're caught. This group is not going to go on very much longer anyway.
Morin
has to break up.
Yeah, Morin's gone over there, but they just, you can see him freewheeling a bit. It looked like he got some fairly good. Looks like Galdiano has just punctured.
Actually, I was looking at Lance Armstrong's bike there on the screen a few minutes ago, and he's got a yellow back wheel and a normally aluminium front wheel. I wonder had he got a yellow pair on the starting this morning, and he punctured one.
He did. It's changed. And also, I think he rode out with that bike with the yellow bottom bracket on it too. And I spotted there was a lot of yellow on the bottom bracket because he was going to ride for a short period a bicycle, which was then going to be put in for the raffle prize for this Cancer Federation of his, or Cancer Trust Fund. So I know he's going to ride at some point, and it certainly looked this morning if he just did out the bit out of the control area, maybe the first 5 kilometres, with this bike with the yellow bottom bracket and yellow splashes on it, and then the the other bike with the yellow wheels as well, all part of the sort of ceremony of being, I'm in yellow, making other things in yellow, because Zabel's also on a green bike today.
And Francois Simon on a blue, red and white bike.
Yes, and he's got his head on the same colour too as well. And when Bronk goes by, he's got a white bike. I want to see if he's got any little red dots on it, because perhaps he's trying to make his bike look like it's got a dose of the King of the Mountains. Well, 2, 4, 6, they've certainly split it up now. That chase group don't be too bothered. Moran going away down the road. Big tall fellow. 35 seconds coming down here. Stephen, I had an email amongst this little lot, but while they're sort of getting sucked back in again, perhaps you'd like to come in. One of the chaps who sent an email to, he's saying that he thought that today the riders were riding much more stretched out, longer top tubes and longer handlebar stems than before. I think it's maybe just an optical illusion, or is there any move towards having a much more relaxed position than being all hunched up?
No, it's actually gone. That's the way it was years ago, all right. That was when Cyril Guimard was basically dictating the positions on the Castorama, on the Gitane and the System U guys, like the Fignon, like the Motte. They always had they had a 54 high seat tube. It could be 56 maybe top tube with a 12.5, 13 centimetre stem. Whereas I must say more so now, bikes are becoming more square, in that the average size will be 55, say 55 square, 56 with 56 high by 55.5 long, 57 with 57 high by 56.5 long, and the higher the bike, the shorter the top tube. And so I think, like, you're looking at Delbien here at the moment, like, he's by no means overstretched on his bike here. And if you look at the majority of the riders in the peloton today, they are a lot more normal and in harmony with their machines than they would have been a couple of years ago. Some years ago, people tried to get the back down really low for the aerodynamics, and in doing that they tried to put in really long stems on and long top tubes and everything else, but it didn't actually automatically do them that good.
Well, in fact, the inquiry came from Mike Mullett, who worked with Gerald O'Donovan at Ilkeston when Raleigh won the Tour in 1980, and he said, I still have got the specs of the bikes built for them. Also, yellow jersey in that Tour present from Zotomuk. So he thought they got longer top tubes, longer stems and shallower frames, but I think shallower frame, I've got a suspicion they're going back more towards less. I mean, the angles one time they went sort of 75-degree parallel, which I thought was a bit too choppy. They seem to be going back a little bit.
73, 74 now.
Yeah, right. I used to prefer 73, 71 actually, because I've got very long legs. My thigh bones are enormous. So I had 73 head and 71 seat to get further back, being 6'4". Well, I've shrunk a bit now, but this enormous long thigh bone. I tried a 73-degree parallel, and I was just so far over the bracket, it was impossible. I couldn't even get a seat pin to push myself far in the back, so I went back to 73, 71. Well, thanks to Mike Mullett then for his email coming through. He said, I found myself clapping and shouting at Armstrong, great ride. Yes, that must be the one at Sestra. He said, as I'm alone in the house, the neighbours think I'm a nut. Yes, Mike, there's not been all locked up yet. There's a few about the place. I know that Lance Armstrong has had many people jumping up and down, and at the moment he's in the main group here, riding around. See the yellow jersey, you'll find out towards the right-hand side of your screen, and so it's going to be a day when he's just got to keep himself out at all. Two French riders here determined to try and do so. So with Dabion away here, with Morin of the France de Job, it'll give the spectators from France on both sides of the road something to shout about. But it's a day when almost the locals are outnumbered by the visitors, because this is a great city for people coming from far and wide. You see these great big blue trucks in the background. These are the main sponsors who brought along VIPs to watch the proceedings today, and a massive crowd. Look at that. Just turn out to see the Tour de France. They've been revelling in what's been happening all over the last 3 weeks, the dramas we've had amongst the racing and not amongst the racing tours. The public have really woken up yet again to the Tour de France, and this ceremony here in the centre of Paris to see the finish, I suppose this adds to the glamour of it, because other races have been over the years developing and becoming more and more recognised, like the Tour of Italy, like the Tour of Spain. But there's some charisma about the Tour de France, particularly, I suppose, its connection with Paris, which is a city, a beautiful city, a nice place to come to. Those big trucks in the background, the blue and yellow ones, they're the ones that carry all the barriers round. You see that everywhere around it's completely barred off. There's 6.5 kilometres barred off. Not only, as you can see, on either side of the road to stop the people, spectators getting through, but in addition there's a lot more barriers outside the area to stop, to encapsulate the VIP people. So there's lots and lots of barriers. They have to be all brought out, stuck in place, and then later on taken down when it's all done and dusted. And those big blue trucks, blue and yellow ones, the chaps who normally go to sleep on the day and then work during the night, I expect that this is one day when they will actually be watching the racing. So spare a thought for the people in the background who put out the banners, who put out the barriers, who very often don't see the racing, because by the time they put it all up together in the early hours of the morning, they then go and collapse into their beds and they wake up just in time to start the whole show all over again. So they've been living a most unusual life for the last 3 nights, and I'm sure when they get back home it takes them a couple of days to get used to being awake in the day and asleep during the night, because there's no doubt about it, the organisation that goes on here, it requires not only a lot of planning, but it needs a lot of manpower too. People who just come here year in, year out, they love the Tour de France, they're prepared to work under very difficult conditions. When you see them humping the barriers, then certainly you have to admire the dedication of people like that who come and do those jobs.
Laurent Delpian is really the driving force behind this break here. Was it last year, Dave, that Laurent Delpian won a stage, or the year before?
It was the year before. He won a stage. Yes, he won the stage down at begins with P, and it was alongside the coast. And
Uchicoff had switched him or something, and it said he switched him.
Yeah, but actually, what he did, David, he put his arm up in the air because he thought he might do something, and nobody was even expecting anything to happen. And they disqualified Uchicoff, and then that was it. He got the stage victory. And I said he looked when he went up on the stage to get his bouquet of flowers like a man who's woken up and found himself in a bank vault surrounded by money, because he just said, "What? I've got a stage." He was completely taken by it all.
"45 seconds.
They're hanging on there.
Break.
Yeah, they're hanging on.
Yeah, but I think the MAPE is now behind, and the telecoms will be soon putting up the sails, I reckon, to chase down this group before catching the Arturo breakaways. It's 4 seconds back to the following group, and then 53 seconds back to the main peloton.
And also see the national champion of Holland, Den Bakker, getting on the front. So the MAPE and Telecom team could probably have some assistance from the Rabobank team, because they are smarting under the fact they haven't had the success they're expecting in the Tour this year. And the big problem was that crash we had a couple of days into the race when going across the causeway, and it was still very slippy. A lot of riders crashed down, and that ruined the hopes of many people, including Rabobank's top man Bogart, who was looking for a good Tour de France this year. He rode extremely good Paris-Nice. He's been riding very well ever since then, and Rabobank were coming in to defend him when down he went, and that was that. Robbie McEwen looking for a stage victory, got as high as I think second and fourth and so on, but he never ever got himself quite close enough to pip the rest. But I think today he'll be doing what he can to get through. Well, I suppose second isn't bad, but he wants that stage victory. So many people want to have a victory in the Tour de France, and in particular on the Champs-Élysées, and the French supporters would really like to have them. But now the peloton's sucked back what's left of our breakaway group, except for the two men down the road, Damien and Morin. Two men, Stephen, it's not enough against this strong train of the Rabobank and MAPE quick step, surely.
No, it's not, because there's still the Telecom still behind. So if the Telecom see that these riders are not closing on the gap, they will very quickly come up and give a hand out. So it's a bit far to go yet now as well for two men to be able to stay away. With them all riding together now as well, it will discourage someone trying to get away, trying to get across to them. But looking at the way the bunch is grouped up there as well, I wouldn't say it's a full effort being made at the moment to catch the breakaway.
Well, at least they're flying the flag for France on one of the most famous streets in the world, the Champs-Élysées, and in the background you can see the Arc de Triomphe at the Étoile Charles de Gaulle. And looking at the information I had a couple of days ago, when I was saying that they were not too happy, the French are not doing too well. They have in the race, as at a couple of days ago, we had 142 riders, 34 French riders still, 29 from Italy and 28 from Spain. And they were comparing the performances of those three great cycling nations, because whilst we know there's some good cyclists from Belgium and from Germany, and of course the Americans now, and just looking at the traditional cycling countries, France, Italy and Spain, those traditional countries, Belgium as well, but they're not putting the Belgians in now because Belgians haven't got anything like the penetration of cycle sport they used to do, but they're just comparing those three nations. And Italy, with just 29 riders left a couple of days ago, had 6 stage victories, Cipollini, 4, Guarini and Comesso. Spain had 3 stage victories out of the 28 riders left in the race. Echeverry got 2 and Escardin got 1, and the French 0. And so they were getting a bit upset about this. So there are other nations who got, in many cases, much less riders in there, were getting many more successes as well. And the only real honour they had were in the French teams was Cursipu for Casino taking the yellow jersey early on and then taking it down from Chalons to Metz. So there's been a lot of soul searching and breast beating going on, but they'll come back, because I can remember the times when if you didn't speak Flemish, you went in with a shout, because sort of strong sport for the Flemish. They dominated for an awful long time, the Belgians particularly, and the Dutch, but very much the Belgians. And again, the Dutch could well say, Stephen, that their Tour de France is not like it used to be. Remember the days when we'd have the climbers and the Alpe d'Huez, all the Dutch boys that were there? So it swings and roundabouts, doesn't it?
It does, but the Dutch riders had the Eurobank team had a very good start to the season, and they were all on big hopes to have a good Tour de France. Whereas the other day I spoke to Theo de Roy, and I said, Jenny, they got fabulous bikes. Theo says, yeah, people can't see them on television, he said. So, but at the same time, it's understandable. It's very difficult to maintain form right the year through, and the Eurobank team have not really got a great tour team. They have a great classic team, great one-day team, small stage race team, but they haven't got a great Tour de France or major tour riders.
Well, talking about teams, our colleagues on the French side of Eurosport completely outnumbering us. I've got Steam Roast with me here, and obviously Patrick Chassé, who's the equivalent of myself for the French station, talking about it. And alongside we've got Laurent Fignon here, then we've got Eric Boyer over there, then we've got Jean-François Bernard, and we've got Vincent Barteau as well. So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 consultants working with him today. So if they haven't on a stage, they certainly outnumber us when it comes to talking.
45 seconds. They're maintaining the gap at the moment. It's not coming down. 5 laps to go.
Well, at least they're enjoying. Oh, there goes, getting himself a very swift drink. Nice shot again. I keep promising myself that nice hotel in the background to go there just to have a pot of tea one day, because it is the most expensive hotel I think in France, which means probably amongst the world's most expensive hotel. Have you been there, Stephen?
The Ritz,
no. What's it called? That hotel across there. It's a very nice one. It's all outside. You always see Rolls Royces and expensive. The Crillon.
The Crillon. Actually, there's friends of mine are in there at the moment. Actually, they rent a room in it every year. My American tour operator brings over a group of American cyclists over here, and my partner from Philip from Palma is also in there with them this week as well. They've been around. They did 2 groups for the Tour de France. One group for the first 10 days, one group for the last 10 days. The group that comes for the last 10 days, they rent the Crillon, a room in there, and they have a television there. They serve drinks, and they watch the tour every time it comes past. So about 100 people in there, I suppose, all having a good time.
Well, next time we'll do our commentary from there, Stephen.
I have an invitation for it if you want to get down. But don't leave me now.
I'm off, Stuart. I'm off for Stephen. I'm off.
Don't leave me now, Dave.
I'm off. Well, I've always wanted to go in that delightful hotel. Now it finds out we've got some contacts there. I won't say it's the most expensive, but I know it's you don't go in there and have just a sort of pint of beer and a packet of crisps. It isn't that sort of place by any means.
Well, you can, but you got to pay with a credit card.
A gold credit card. The Rabobank's still working hard. We've seen Patrick Jonker working on the front, going. That's him just for a little peak cap for drifting off the front. So the Rabobank beginning to warm things up. Quick rundown of the Rabobank team: Michael Bogard, Eric Decker, Den Bakker, Jonker in there. I'll just doubly check to see how many they've got left, by the way, because some of the teams have been losing 1 or 2 riders on the way through. But I think they've only dropped 1 lad so far. Hang on. I think it's 30 seconds. So Rabobank working hard. Jonker, Lotz, Little Kewen, Brand Bon, in there, and Seberg. Volter's crashed out on the causeway, so they've not got him in the team at the moment.
I think the Mapei team now are backed off a little bit now. They're basically, so they see they can maintain the gap there for the moment, because once they ride hard to catch the breakaway group, there will always be straight away another guy, someone else trying to have a go. So the idea is to lead them, let them hang, because they know they're not getting away from them, and then the final 2 laps then just kind of open up the gas and go and get them back in.
So the 3 teams that really in there fighting for the stage victory today. Mapei quick step for the Tom Steels to come and try and get his 4th victory in the Tour. The pink and white jerseys for Eric Zabel. Not won a stage yet, but he's wearing the green jersey for the 4th time in the Tour de France. And the lads from the Rabobank team in the white and the orange trying to set up for McEwen, because they haven't had a stage victory in the Tour this year and were desperately keen to get there. The French riders just hoped they could probably break the mold by getting a couple of chaps down the road, like we're seeing here with Menyon on his screen there, going through, and in the blue and the white and the red, and that's Dabian. So the 2 really are going some, but they need an extra couple of blokes in there.
We were speaking the other week, Dave, about the riders themselves coming on to the last stage. What does it do to them and everything else? I was saying that, well, they would have their shoes spotlessly clean, a new pair of socks, new pair of shorts, a new jersey, a new t-shirt, new glasses. They might even go get their hair done the night before or the morning of, and they'd be full of enthusiasm and full of strength in hope that the Champs-Élysées will be good to them. But this morning in the village, I was met some of the cameramen of the France Television. I met some of the journalists from different other papers and everything else, people that are following the tour, following the stage actually. If a camera sees it later on, but if you look at David across there, there's the motorbike men coming down the Champs-Élysées with the cameras in their hands and everything else. They all have shirts and ties on today. It's the first time we've seen that since the start of the Tour de France, back in Puy de Fou 3 weeks ago. But just to kind of just let you know that there isn't only the cyclists actually take a great pride in being respectable and clean and nice looking on the day of the Champs-Élysées. The motorcyclists and the journalists and everybody that's coming at the Champs-Élysées, they all put on a good show.
Yes, you're right. You can see our camera crew there in the nice blue shirts, and I like the way too that the police come along here. They don't need as many police, but they've done a wonderful job, and they come along here. It's their day, isn't it? In front of the crowd, coming along with the vehicles, looking after the interests of the riders. The breakaway does come, but they've gone all the way along the whole of the tour, and everybody going around here just thinks, well, that's it, that's over and done with. And it's always been anticlimax by tomorrow morning, isn't it, Stephen? Then how does it feel when you go back to your first race after this?
Very hard, because you're normally the lads will have a night out tonight. They'll have a few drinks, they'll have a party made with their wives and families and their teammates, and tomorrow morning they probably get to bed very, very late, very early in the morning rather, and then they might ride a criterium tomorrow. There's one criterium in Holland and one criterium in Dijon tomorrow, and I'd say the best part of 80% of the peloton will be racing at some place tomorrow. So the only thing is, like, for the tour, for the last 3 weeks they've been averaging 180, 200 kilometres a day, where the criterium tomorrow will probably be about 100 kilometres. So and be running in the afternoon, so it'll not be in the hottest part of the day either. But it's then you get to a rut then, or just riding every day, and it's another day, another place, another town, another bed, another hotel, and that'll go on for 3 weeks, where they probably ride about, the next 2 weeks they might ride, the next 14 days they might ride about nine days of criteriums, and in between drive maybe 300, 400, 500 kilometres in between each criterium.
And also next year, Alan Rushton was saying to me that the Prudential Tour is being moved, or Pruta is being moved to the August period as well. So that may conflict with some of the criteriums, but conversely, it may give some of the riders who are looking not so much coming out of the Tour de France, but getting ready to the Tour of Spain to ride it's a 6 or 7 day race now.
Yeah, it's 6, 7, 8. But I think it's a good thing also, because the riders will ride to have 2 weeks after the Tour de France to basically recuperate and get their money in the criteriums. And then the Pro Tour has a fairly good prize package as well. It's not just a kind of a small race. It's £100,000 in prize money. So the riders will look to that, and also look at it as a preparation for the race at the end of the season, and say, okay, I've ridden a few criteriums. What's the point in riding one more? Riding the Pro Tour, well, okay, I might earn a few quid in it, but at the same time, more importantly, it's given me a great foundation to relaunch my motor, relaunch myself into the classics at the end of the season.
I was intrigued then, Stephen, as that camera went down into the underground as the riders came through, to see the brightness of the white stripes on the shorts of the telecom team. The Adidas 3 stripes. We'll watch it next time it comes around. I've got a suspicion it's some luminous paint of some description, because it was reflecting in the sunlight or the lights from our cameras much brighter than if it's white. So I'll be fascinated to see if that's so. But not many riders of this class go out riding at night with the need to have something reflective. But I suppose this may be something that the Adidas people are doing. So if somebody buys replica clothing and they are riding in the evening when it gets dark or a bit dusk, then that would catch up in the car headlights. But watch out for that one again when they come through. 25 seconds, Courtney on the headphones. And certainly has slimmed down a bit now. You can see them having a drink. My watch shows they've gone through, coming up towards 7:46, the lead twosome on that last lap. So they're now dropping back to nearly 8-minute laps from the about 7:20 we started with. I'm not surprised the way they were going around it. 3 laps to go, says the sign when they come through this time. Our 2 leaders, I think, trying to find it very difficult to hang on for those last 3 laps. Yes, just gone over 8 minutes then. Well, the French spectators loving this one, just hoping they can hang out. Renault is really burying himself. David's really burying himself to try and get this particular one. But the rest, the way they're going, this bunch, Steve, it looks to me like they've just got it nicely balanced, haven't they? They
have, yeah. They're just playing with them there. And you see there's one Mappé, one Telecom and one Rabobank there right in the front of the group, just rolling around. There's not just the whole impact of the whole teams, all the teams there in the front. There's one rider from each team just maintain the tempo.
And these teams, we started out with the teams in this race, the 20 teams in all, 9 riders, 180 riders setting out on the Tour de France. And I've had an email from Kevin Watt up in Aberdeenshire in Scotland saying that our team replica jerseys available to the public to purchase. The answer to that one is yes, Kevin. What you need to do is to buy one of those magazines, say Cycling Weekly, for 2 or 3 weeks, and you'll find advertisements in there, or the copy of the other monthly cycling magazines, particularly like Cycle Sport or Pro Cycling. And in there from time to time you'll see an advertisement from the various people who do have the clothing. You can get it from some bike shops. I don't quite know Elon up in Aberdeenshire as to whether you've got the bike shop which stock this sort of stuff. If not, they are available by mail from people in Great Britain, and you can get exactly the same sort of racing jersey and shorts if you want. And it's worthwhile just going and get yourself a magazine. If you can't get a cycling magazine up at your particular village, then I'm sure if you got in touch with like W.H. Smith or Menges, one of the big people, go over to Aberdeen and get one, and in there you'll find the advertisements for the people who have these jerseys, and yes, you could then get them. And you asked me, can I tell you the route of the tour, how it's decided each year, and the length of the stages, or does it basically stay the same? Generally speaking, it stays round a bit. Obviously the time scale from the 3 weeks, that stays fixed. The number of days they can race is fixed, and these 3 big tours, the Tour of France, the Tour of Spain, the Tour of Italy, they're all tours, the biggest tours. They're allowed to be racing over the 3 weeks by the UCI. No other tour can suddenly come on and say, we want a 3-week race. It's all graded. You can only have these 3 big tours. The rest of them are around about only between 7 and 10 days, or sometimes down to 4 or 5 days. The UCI controlling the amount of days you can have stage races, and also the length of the stages over the period, which is about 3,500 kilometres every time. They have a maximum length of stage because the UCI don't want it to be too big. In some of these big all-category ones, like the Tour de France, you can push it on into 240, 250 kilometres, a bit longer than you have in another stage race, because when you get to the races like the Pro Tour, the Tour of Switzerland, they there have only got a certain level of distance of stage they can race, because the UCI don't want the riders actually burnt out. So far cry for the days, for instance, when the first tour was ever run, and they averaged over that occasion something like 260 miles a day was the average, and one of the longest stages was something around about 450 kilometres in all. Off goes an attack then from Polti Rider, and so that's the general concept of the tour, Kevin Watt, that you have a certain distance to ride, but obviously they've got to ride from one place, one town to another, and if the 2 towns are close together, they often go out into the countryside, and they do change it every year. They do like to have something like same climbs up the Alpe d'Huez, but the organisers try to vary it to take it to different towns, because the towns want the publicity and the towns also pay for the Tour de France to go there. That's where the money comes from for the prize money for the ride. Apart from the sponsorship money, the towns welcome the Tour de France because it brings income to the town when people go and stay there. You've got 3,500 people moving around. It's a few bob in the bank as far as they're concerned. And the exposure on television and in the media, on radio and in the press for a town or a village means they get publicity, and that's why they do it. So it does generate income for the towns. It does change every year, but one place we do finish in is Paris. The race started and finished here when it was first ever run, the Tour de France, and now we're going to do the same thing again. We finished here 125 times in the past. 50 sorry we first finished, they finished at the Parc des Princes. In fact, I went out there to see the finish way back in 1955 when Poblet won the stage in there. It went on being used until 1968 when it went to the track at Vincennes, that's on the outskirts of Paris. Well, it's the outskirts, it's on the suburbs of Paris, and we only finished there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 7 times, and then it moved in 75 to finish here on the Champs-Élysées with Walter Godefroot, the man who was first ever victor of the stage in the Tour de France on this particular route, and that he's the team manager of the team Telecom, so he certainly knows what it's all about and hopes his man gets it today. There they go, colourful side of cyclists. And if you want to know next year's route, I do get people asking me this question again. We don't know. All we know is starting down at Futuroscope, and we'll be spending some 3 days in that part of the world, and it heads up towards Brittany. All will be revealed the first week in November at the big hotel and conference room not far down from here, down at the Port Maillot. Tour de France have everybody going in there, and so now they've been sucked back in again. We will know in November the route next year. It'll be published again in the cycling magazine, so if you wish to plan next year's trip to the Tour de France, you can get it there, or you can get in touch with the people that organise the tours to come to see the Tour de France and perhaps go on one of those package tours. It doesn't, when we first get it, by the way, go down the nth detail. It just says it's going to start in this town and finish in that town, and the route's roughly that, so we don't always know exactly straight away overnight the precise route it goes through. We know the mountains it's going to go over. We know just generally what it is, and it's perfected as the weeks go by, as they talk to the authorities about which particular route they're going to take. And then when we get nearer to the race, then the magazines again will be in the months before, about 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 weeks before the race starts. They'll be publishing the route, so you can actually go out and plan to go and see it. There we are, Tour de France coming towards the end. They'll come through this time with 2 laps to go. Let's see if the Telecom lads' pants light. There they are. Look, the lights coming up. I'm sure they're illuminate. They're reflect. What do you think, Stephen?
Yeah, definitely. There's they are glowing there, and they
flashing is the word.
With the light you have in the tunnel. Probably maybe because the kids do buy them, I suppose, and it's a security aspect to it, maybe.
Just down, you're talking about that Creon Hotel, just down one of these side streets there is Conall Carr's bar, where they're probably listening to Eurosport's coverage of the race in the centre of Paris right now, having a few sherbets. Didn't manage to get there today for lunchtime because I suddenly realised that we were going on there a lot earlier than I expected. I had to panic to get here, and the police wouldn't let me get my car to where it should normally be parked. Had to hot-footed across over 3 lots of fences to get the commentary point today, so no chance to go down for a glass of clear water with Conall Carr, but he might have a drop of the brown liquid later on today. We shall see. The old sore throats come in, folks. Spray time.
They're all well strung out there, so they're obviously starting to wind up now, because when you come down to the line this time, there's only 2 laps to go. You see there the publicity vans here, you see them there, the 2 big buses there. They're the buses we had over in the Pro Tour in May for the Pro Tour, so you can just go to show you the level of the standing in the Pro Tour compared to Tour de France. Tour de France will always be bigger because it's much bigger budget, much bigger important event. It's almost 100 years established, but at the same time having the 2 equivalents of this in Britain, I think was a great achievement by Alan Rush, and also a great credit to Prudential for putting on the whole show.
Well, they're coming through then with the
there's Zule on the screen there.
Sorry, go on.
Just saw Zule on the screen there. I'm going to go sitting well back in the comfort of his teammates.
But they certainly do get out of the way, don't they? The chaps who are going to be up there on the roster in first, second and third spot. They've got to ride the same speed everybody else. They can't allow the gaps to open up. They can't allow themselves to be tailed off because it's just not done. You have to get stuck in there and ride it hard. Still one or two hopefuls. It's a difficult time to go when it's getting towards the back end of the race because they really are motoring here, and you can see just our lonely soldier out there getting a long run. This is the remnants of the Lampre-Daikin team. This is Marco Pinotti. They've only got 3 riders finishing the Tour this year. They've unfortunately lost another of the 6 of the men that started. Only 3 are going to finish. And Pinotti, together with Piccoli, who had the Kingdom Mounties jersey on his shoulders for a short while. They've been doing what they can today to entertain people, but really the Lampre-Daikin team had not a tour which they were expected to have at all. Their top sprinter out of it now because Serrata was looking to have a good sprint here in the finish line, but he didn't make it. Spruck didn't make it either. Verstappen didn't make it. So a lot of their riders, and of course David Duffield, the man who won a stage in the Tour, been
same riding the gutter there, Dave.
Yep.
Look at that colour dirt again. The camera's even picking up the dirt in the gutter there. Like, you're away on a break trying to win the stage in the Tour de France, and you're riding in the gutter. Like, you know, if you rode another 2 or 3 foot out from the gutter, there'd be less chance of puncturing anything else. So it's very strange and very
perhaps he hopes he could hide there, they wouldn't see him, doesn't it?
I don't know, but it's asking for trouble riding in there, but they're very dirty, as we saw on the camera there.
Jackie Duran just trying to bridge the gap. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 riders here going round on this penultimate lap at the front. Again, Big Matt, who come from, most of the riders from a team that used to be called Aubervilliers. And Aubervilliers is a suburb of Paris, north of the town, and they started a small-time team. One by one they got sponsors like Big Matt and IBM to come along and support the team, and now they're trying to get something out of this race just at the back end. There'll be a lot of their locals that have come down from Aubervilliers, and we're cheering that little move because at least 1, if not 2 of their riders in that group. And Casino also just go off the front, but they're now back together again. The attacks are coming thick and fast all over the place. The yellow jersey will be well back from the front of the race on this occasion because he wants to keep out of trouble, make sure that on these wide streets nothing happens to him. As Lanfranchi yet again goes through, the chap with the glasses on the top of his head and the blue handlebar tape, Paolo Lanfranchi, holding the thing together for the Mappe quick-step team to try and put Steels in with a shout. There's a snake going on. They're doing this, by the way, they want to follow the wheels to make sure he gets shelter. So if somebody goes right in front of you, go right with him. He goes left, you go left behind him, and you get that sort of zigzag shape developing. And they go towards the last lap of the race. Well, the American Lance Armstrong will be ceremonially up there on the roster at the end of it all. Then the riders, when it's finished, we don't show it to you on Eurosport, but what they do, they send the teams round the Champs-Élysées and they go out with a team car behind them, and the number of the riders left, be it 3 or be it the whole 9, ride round the course slowly but surely for the cheers of the people that come. And certainly the Stars and Stripes will be waving for Lance Armstrong on the last lap, and also when he does his lap on the 2, because he's got that yellow jersey on his shoulders now. We're coming in towards the last lap. It'll be... just waiting for the sound coming over the headphones. And so the presentations will take place. We hope we have time to bring to you on Eurosport. But this is not the first time the Americans have been heralded here at the finish of the Tour de France, because in 1987 it was Pierce who rocketed across the line to get the stage victory, the first American and at the moment the only American to win a sprint finish into the finish of the Tour de France at Champs-Élysées. But it was Greg LeMond in 1989 who beat a man just sitting 2 seats away from me here, Laurent Fignon, by a slender 8 seconds in the time trial. That was one of the big finishes that go down the annals of the Tour de France. And if you've been interested in this race throughout the last 3 weeks and want to find out more about it, again, when you get your copy of your cycling magazines, you'll see advertised in there the various companies that have tapes and books. And it's well worthwhile for the winter buying some, maybe for your own birthday, maybe for somebody in the family, their birthday or a Christmas present, and encourage you to have a look at them as well yourself. But there's some lovely books about Tour de France. There are tapes out there. My young friend here, Stephen Roche, has a double tape about his background in his racing time as a racing cyclist. I think there's also one on Sean Kelly. So you can go and get your tapes, you can get your books as well. And when in the winter, when there's no bike racing, you can maintain contact with the sport and learn and read a bit more about it. Like the 1904, it said the Tour de France, which was to be the last, the book by Jacques Serret. A lovely story there about how the journalists were following the race and the intrigues and things. People were throwing tin tacks on the road and rather suddenly appearing in the bunch from nowhere. He'd been dropped and they've suspiciously hung onto a motor car. But beyond and back in time, this race had the start which gave the whole of the French public a great flavour for riding bikes around their great country, and it's continued ever since. And this, the 1999 Tour de France, coming towards its conclusion. They'll come down that Rue de Rivoli and they'll just then have one more lap to go as they come through on this final stage of the Tour de France. Gorgeous day. Bourman's coming through, hey?
Yeah, well, so he is still in the race.
And 6.5 kilometres is his distance, isn't it?
It is, but normally he starts from a slight warm-up. He starts 21 days to warm up, so he maybe a bit long, maybe.
Well, look at the string, the way it's going. And of course, again, you see, Chris is the sort of rider that if he really rides fast, he can travel at 50-55 kilometres an hour. There he is coming, he's second at the moment. Now that's interesting, but he's got to get some daylight between himself and the rest of the pack. Or do you think he's riding this one in for Simon? But he hasn't got Simon on his wheel.
Simon or O'Grady, I reckon, Dave.
Yeah.
But I don't think, the fact that he's taken over in the front now, he's not obviously riding for himself, but at the same time he should have been maybe sitting back on second or third place and tried to have a go himself. Maybe that's what he's going to do, because he didn't ride very hard there.
No.
Just sit back in there.
And so, what would you do? You'd take off maybe going up towards the top, towards the top of the rise here, towards the Arc de Triomphe.
Yeah.
Get yourself in the top 10 and then pow.
Yeah, but even still, he might even be too far out then, Dave, because it's very fast at descent, and a rider that's on his own would not come down the descent as fast as the riders behind which are all bunched up. So the best place to go would be as you're coming out of the tunnel on the back road, which is about 1.5 kilometres to go. That's my place to go anyway, if I was Chris Boardman or anybody hoping to be able to hold off the rest of the field to the finish.
Well, the green shorts there, that's O'Grady. Sorry, that's Vogel's, O'Grady's lead-out man. And there the old bell going as they come through this time for the final lap in the 1999 Tour de France. 6.5 kilometres ahead of them, and the big wodge of colour on the front as the Mappe quick step to try to make sure that nobody like Chris Bourman can rocket away and catch them napping. They push the speed up, and there you can see how they're all strung out in line, and I can't convey to you really the sensation of speed. You're watching here, look at the blur in the background. Those banners are just absolutely blurred. They're travelling here, they'll be close on 35-37 miles an hour on this going up, and then they'll turn and come down the other side, and they'll be pounding the pedals at the thick end of 40-45 miles an hour. That's the green jersey going through. Eric Szabo, fourth time in green, now looking to see if he can get the stage victory. Tom Steele's desperately hanging on in there, following on behind the wheels to see if he can get. He's number 39, Tom Steele. Big
McEwen there as well, Dave.
Yes, he's in the orange colour, orange and white. Yeah, he doesn't get much lead out from his team. So if you see an orange and white jersey popping up towards the front, that's the lad from Rabobank, McEwen, who I'm sure will be looking for a place in the top 3 today. That's Szabo on his green bike.
Yeah, looks very well, doesn't it?
Does look good.
Green shorts, white,
green gloves.
And he hasn't won a stage yet either, Dave. Nope. So he really wants to win a stage today, because last year he won the green jersey, didn't win the stage. This year he has the green jersey and still hasn't won a stage. He's one chance left to do it.
So you pick out the green jersey of Eric Szabo. He's got enough points to keep that jersey. It's just down now to the triumphant run in that final sprint, because so many people want to win the stage on the Champs-Élysées, dating back to 1975 since we finished here. And we used to finish on the outskirts of Paris right the way up to 1967. Then it came into Parc des Princes, just on the outskirts, and now it's right in the centre of the town.
You have the,
I've lost sight of McEwen, looking for the orange.
Yeah, you see the Mappe now coming to front, but they seem to be very limited in the numbers they have with 1 lap to go. Would have thought they would have had all of their teammates up there riding in the front.
They tried a bit back to pull it together. Perhaps they're getting a bit tired now. They're going to I think surely they've got to let or Telecom should take over. They've got the green jersey, and it must be up to them to keep the pace up, eh?
Well, they haven't got a big team either, Dave, so I reckon they're waiting until the last minute to take over.
And if it slows down, you'll get some people like Michelson, for instance, who's known for a big burst of speed, to come thundering out and try and get away. So 1 or 2 riders would like to go, and that lies to 1.5-2 kilometres. You're quite right, they can still catch it now. They've got to keep the speed up.
And I reckon looking at the way the pictures are there, the speed is still up, I think.
Yep. But it's getting a bit wodgy at the back, isn't it? It isn't that long line we saw before.
No, but normally you'd have 7 or 8 teammates in the front riding flat out to string the whole thing out. But in this situation here, you have 2 Mappé, 1 Telecom.
And is that Jean Simon coming up in the blue?
That could be.
Oh no, it's US Postal.
US Postal coming through.
It's US Postal. Yeah. Well, George Hincapie. Well, yes, there's George with the beard. Well. Yes, George Hincapie. Well, last year in the finish, George finished in 4th spot, running down last year's finish. Tom Stills won it. Zanini, Mappé was 2nd, O'Grady 3rd, Hincapie 4th, Szabo 5th, McEwen in 6th spot. All except Zanini in with a shout today. Let's see what is going to happen. And you actually expect this looks like one of the Vitalo Seguros riders going off down the front. I'm really pounding on. They'll go after him though.
Well, they'll make the tempo fast enough to make sure he doesn't get too far away. You have to look across here from a commentary point here. There's 4 Telecom now come to the front, so I reckon his moment of glory will be short-lived. It was short-lived, but at the same time, coming out of a bunch at that speed, you have to have some kind of legs, Dave.
Well, he's just about 5 or 6 lengths away from. You see that big hoop on the right-hand side, just past this big needle. Well, it's like Cleopatra's Needle in Birmingham, in London. That's where they're going to finish. That's the hoop over the top. This is the last time.
It's all strung out now, Dave.
Yeah.
The last time, Dave, also the riders will be on the Champs-Élysées for this decade, 1999. The last time.
You're right. You're right. Well, year 2000 coming up shortly, and Tour de France starting, we know, in Futuroscope, ending, we know, in Paris. Just looking down there, there's somebody trying to infiltrate on the right-hand side. Didn't seem to get much of it, so the Telecom are doing the work.
That's Francois Simon there.
Yes, he is.
15 back. See him coming out through there. There he's coming through. Oh no, he's locked in again. He's trying to get out there.
And see, right towards the back there, the left-hand side of the screen, a little white peak cap, that's Zuller. All the top men who are going to be up there on Victor Ostrom collecting their various jerseys and plaudits to the crowd, they won't get in contention for this sprint. They'll just ride in the slipstream and leave it up to the Telecom team as they come through them. So Telecom, Eric Zabel, they've got a full team, by the way. Only 2 teams have finished with all their teams, and Eric Zabel wears 21, the green jersey. And doing the work at the moment, Udo Bolz, Alberto Elli, Giuseppe Guarini, who got that wonderful stage victory up into the Alps. Kai Huntermark, George Jasker, Jan Scharaf, George Toshnik and Stefan Weisemann. All those lads have been working hard throughout this race, keeping that man in green and in contention for the prize, the points prize. Will he get the stage victory?
Yes, 3 men with him there for his lead out. And the method the Telecom use is very bizarre. I don't like it myself, but they ride out, they ride it, everything that they have, and they pull off one at a time.
Tax on the side.
As you see here, some of the attacks here means it's going to be very few men left for him to lead him out. We see Laurent Brochard now going there now. Isabel now must make his last 2 men really ride hard, which is actually going to upset his final sprint, because he's got to come out of final corner with 1 man left, with 500 metres to the line and 1 man in front of him. It's a very long way to go.
So inside the final kilometres take now, coming towards 500 metres to go. Still the pink train trying to pull back that attempt from Brochard. They've got around about 30 seconds of racing ahead of them to see who's going to win this stage into the finishing line. Up the Champs-Élysées, they're turning around.
David, see, Telecom only has 1 rider left now in front of him.
So the green jersey will be left on his own shortly, and Michelson has come through, the big rider, Francois de Jure. He's starting to go some too. Look at this here, the Danish rider hammering down here, but he's too far out. Then on the right-hand side, the green jersey, and McEwen that is coming up into McEwen and Zabel on the line. It's going to be to McEwen, I think. Yes, it is. The Aussie McEwen has got that one from Zabel, and what a sprint from Robbie McEwen. Rabobank will be absolutely pleased, and my Aussie friends who've been there all the way through this race will just be so relieved to see him get that sprint. That was phenomenal. He just burst through his back. That is typical McEwen tactics, and the look on the face of my German colleagues here, particularly Klaus Angermann, when he saw disappointed on the line that suddenly Zabel was beaten by the little Aussie Eric Zabel in second spot. Watch it again here, Stephen.
Now he came a little bomb coming through it was. I saw Steels there, Tom Steels sitting up. I don't know whether he had a problem there or what happened, but he backed off a long way back here.
And that's O'Grady between the jubilant McEwen, fellow in the green and white behind is O'Grady, and Steels was way back about 5th or 6th. We'll wait for confirmation of that one, but goodness
what a sprint there is. So
let's watch it from the top. Come on, Steve.
Look how far he's come back from for the sprint. But I think Zabel has lead-out men worked too hard too early.
So it's a man-to-man McEwen coming out the slipstream.
Look how fast he's coming back at him there, though. Incredible.
There he goes. Well, it looks shorter from our front view, but from the top you can see he got a clear length there, and Zabel didn't get the victory for trading with the pink hat. Brochard tried to go away, and you're quite right, they were down to one man here. Well, they wanted to...
Yeah, there's too much. There's too much. He used the ball as lead-out man before he came into the 500 metres, so it meant he had to come up to launch a sprint very quickly.
Watch the blue crash out. No, he just decided enough.
Yeah, sit up.
Yes.
I don't know, he said maybe a cramp or something, but it's very strange. He just stopped pedaling, Dave.
Yeah, or did he flick the gear and get it wrong?
I don't know.
Steels just backed off at the last minute for some reason, and tremendous sprint from McEwen, absolutely phenomenal. That's certainly going to make the day for the Aussies, but in the yellow jersey safely home is Lance Armstrong, winner of this tour. Well, there we are then. That's McEwen, Zabel, Martinello there in third spot, O'Grady back fourth, and no sign of Tom Steels in the top 10, so he must have faded even more than we thought. But tremendous punchy ride by the man in the top left-hand corner of the screen there, McEwen, to take the stage victory. Zabel has got the green jersey, he'll keep that one, so he will be up on the victory roster, and that's him. He's well and truly beaten at that spot. Back to the rest of the riders trailing in the wake, and at this point I think somehow that Tom Steels, he sat up, decided he had enough. That's the gap for you.
Look who's got the fourth,
yeah. I bet they're glad that's over now. You want to look at the face of these chaps, they're sweating, they're drinking everything, they've got a handful of orange squashes, and hey Stewie! Stuart, great way. Yeah, good. Well, nice to see that that's going so well, and I think that's going to give a fillip to all the English-speaking cyclists, because we've seen him battling for the green points jersey, got the yellow jersey last year, wore the green jersey for a short time this time, and now we've got the Australian there, McEwen, getting the final stage victory of the tour this year. We shall be seeing shortly, I hope, the presentation up on the rostrum, the victory rostrum of the various jerseys, but first of all we'll be starting with the victory of the stage. And I spoke to him the other day, Robbie McEwen, when he got about fourth. I said nearly there, he said fourth no good. He said, and in fact I'm just watching the McEwen go down, hotly pursued by the television station from Australia, SBS, just chasing him down the road to get some more shots from him, and he said no, that wasn't good. I mean, I know what he's wanted to do. He wanted to get a stage victory. He's got the big one that matters, because his name will go down on the Royal Colour of Honour with people like Abdul Jafarov, twice winner here, Tom Steels winner last year, Minali, Baldato, Ludwig, Van Poppel, Von Tempe, Pearce won the stage here too as well, way back, that great sprinter Godefroot, who was with the Telecom team now as team manager, was just hoping that his team would get it right, but they faded at the last minute, and in the green jersey he couldn't quite make it. Zabel is on the right hand side as we look at it here. McEwen, the ex-BMX rider, punchy little chap he is too. He's taken a couple of seasons to settle down at this level, but now he's come good, and there he goes across the line, followed by O'Grady, another Australian who's second in the points competition, and this little lad so happy with that, it shows. Well, that'll make Theo de Roux smile. I wanted to, I think, Stephen, you're saying that he hasn't been too happy with things for the Rabobank team.
Who's this, Theo de Roux? Well, I spoke to soon. Maybe that's what Theo told the riders last night, maybe in the briefing, maybe that, listen, it's all very fine you being here on tour, you know, but like, please, show for the cameras. So
they show properly
McEwen
there.
definitely showed there today. Look at it, what ease he's passed by Zabel.
It's a gift to be out that quick, isn't it?
I haven't got it, Dave.
And to do it after 2,600 miles of racing too as well, up and hill and down. They're not really the sort of characters that shine in the mountain by any means. Martinel, a good ride there into third spot, because he's the Olympic points champion. Yeah, he's done points, and he's a very good world rider when it comes to Madison's. He's very much a trackman, Martinello, but he's hauled his body over the big mountains too. He used to be a lead-out man for Cipollini till he switched teams, so a good place there, third. That'll help him, I think, in his contracts to go for the 6-day. He's one of the most prolific 6-day riders as well as Martinello. Back out with our thumping great big view past. Do you want to know what that is? Yes, right, I'll tell you. That obelisk, it actually was presented to France in 1829 by Mehet Ali, the Viceroy of Egypt. 75 foot tall, that spire. Thought you like that. Back then to the sprint.
Well, they're talking about building one in Dublin to replace Nelson's pillar for it's a Millennium project. Some kind of a spiral pin or something.
What happened? It got blown up, did it, something, Nelson?
Yeah, blown up, yeah. Back in the 70s.
Well, if they're going to start doing it for that, they've got to start making... They want to make a genuine one. It used to take years and years and years of work, those Egyptian... what do you call needles, obelisks? They used to actually dig them out of solid rock, They would cut a solid rock on their sides, and they would go down, dig alongside it, and they would actually work on it. And eventually they had to sort of get it down to the river. To the River Nile, rolling it on great big logs. It's all one piece. These great big needles are one piece of stone. Imagine 75 foot of stone made those many years ago, where they did do, and they had to then get it down, and they would put it onto a boat, and the boat would be sunk into the earth where sand ran about it, and they'd pushed it onto the boat. You couldn't sort of lift it up. Hang on, to lift it up with. You'd take it onto this boat, and then they'd move all the sand from around about the boat, and they'd wait then till the flood tide came on the Nile. They'd lift the boat up, and they'd take it off like that. Give them a dedication to do that with the obelisks, or the needles they call it, because our Cleopatra needle weighs 186 tons, by the way, the one in Great Britain. You imagine that, moving that with the materials they had in those days. There's the overall results of the Tour de France for you on your screen now, and so the yellow jersey for Lance Armstrong with the stars and stripes, which I see will suddenly start to wave in profusion. And for the last time, the big lorries there will be waiting to come out on the Champs-Élysées and load themselves up with all the barricades, and then we're off going. So a moment to look back at the US Postal team who've ridden so well defending Lance Armstrong, and sadness to two of the riders who didn't make it this far because of crashes. And there is Lance Armstrong in his yellow. So well done to the team from La France, team from the US Postal team. That's Frankie Andrew, Pascal Durrami, Tyler Hamilton, George Hincapie, Kevin Livingston, Christian van der Velde. Jonathan Walters, bad luck because he crashed out on that day too, and Tamanat Nilsson had problems and just couldn't make it through. So with the sun coming out to shine on the Aussie, who's done a perfect thing as far as he's concerned. It shows there. Little Robbie McEwen now taking the final stage in the Tour de France. He's been a long time getting there. He used to get lent on, by the way. The first couple of years he was riding, he said that he just couldn't find his way through properly, but he found his way through then. Nice clear space for him and unleashed that superb sprint. So an example to you young lads who used to BMXing, that you can move up to this level, because he came from a BMX background too as well. Robbie McEwen, the victor in Paris at the end of the 1999 Tour de France. That's a nice piece of sculpture to take back to Australia.
It's Jean Tiberi, the mayor of Paris, who's given him the trophy, Dave.
And we'll look again to see how he got that sprint. Also joining John Tiberi on the rostrum, the mayor of Paris, was Daniel Malcol, the president, director general of the Coca-Cola France, who've been sponsoring the stages, the stage victory being covered by Coca-Cola, one of our long-term sponsors of the Tour de France. Well, that will certainly sharpen up his contracts for some of the criteriums yet to come, I think, because they can get good money when they've won stage in the Tour de France. And this man, well, Lance Armstrong, at long last looking a little bit more relaxed. He's not been showing on his face all the way through the pain, the suffering, or the elation. He's just tried to keep himself very cool as, again, Jean Thierry, the mayor of Paris, comes up. He's joined by Jean-Claude Vanier, the director of Credit Lyonnais, to put on that yellow jersey. Sponsored by Credit Lyonnais, this particular part of the competition. So yet again, an American in yellow. Greg LeMond's been with us during the Tour de France. He's been 3 times in yellow on the Champs-Elysees. Have you had a chance to speak to Greg LeMond at all during the Tour?
No, I met him on Alpe d'Huez there last week, so he was over with a group. So we climbed Alpe d'Huez, okay, but he has lost a bit of weight, and I must say it looks much the better for it as well.
And so this man lost a lot of weight too, Lance Armstrong, who burst upon the scene when he became one of the youngest ever world champions. That was in Oslo, and everybody stood up and said, who the heck's this? Well, he's certainly shown it now. He came back from cancer after being off his bike nearly a couple of years. Even when he was having his chemotherapy treatment, he still went out riding his bike. And that's his mother over there. There she is. Oh, that's great. Was it? Oh, it's his wife now. I just saw the back end of her head, my mistake. Because his mother has also come to join us here.
Well, Dave, a few years ago that wouldn't have been allowed.
No.
When I won the Tour, my wife had jumped over a barrier and had to tell him she was Stephen Roach's wife, and he still wouldn't believe her to let her in. So it's nice the way things have changed now in the Tour.
She wouldn't, would she? Couldn't, no. That's a nice shot. That's a nice shot. And also when we have the green jersey, because that examples young lad, nobody comes along, doesn't he, dressed in the green jersey as well?
Yeah,
so things that years gone by. It has changed.
Here we go.
Yes, here comes Eric Zabel, and there's it, and he's got his hair done green as well. Oh, great! This is something else, isn't it? I bet he has to have that washed there before he goes back to school then, because coming up here, the man who'll be coming up there, Manfred Böhmer, the president of the Federation of German Cycling Club, he'll be here together with Bertrand Bellinger, the president of PMU, who are the sponsor of this particular part of the competition. So that's Bernard Bellinger on the left-hand side, and Manfred Böhmer on the right-hand side, and Eric taking yet again another green jersey. And these young lads come up with one of these great big hands too, these cardboard cutout hands. Everywhere you go on the Tour, around about the areas that the sprints are, they're there with these cardboard cutout hands, and he's got one here. Give him a big hand. That's great, isn't it? I suppose in some years to come, Stephen, this will sink in, because at kids of this age, they enjoy the sort of show of it all, but they probably just don't really realise the significance until later on his dad shows in some of the pictures or videos, eh?
Well, it's one thing when people say to me, do you miss the cycling now? I don't really miss the racing at all, but one thing you do miss is this kind of thing, because you have much more, the family is much more involved in it now than it was in my day. You had Jack Godet and Felix Leviton, who was your wife couldn't even be in a stone's throw of the podium, which is very unfortunate.
Yes, I also remember in years gone by as well that there was no women allowed at all anywhere near the race.
No, well, there was a few soigneurs came in, masseurs came in then again, a few drivers came in as well, but at the same time I think it was very difficult to get your wife. It's probably Greg LeMond who started back in 89-90 that actually started bringing his wife Cathy along to all the places, and it became more and more relaxed then, and then Jean-Marie Leblanc got into power as the director of the Tour de France, and he continued on with it because he thought, well, the family values are very important, where cyclists are away for months at a time, whereas they are also, the women, the wives and the families of the riders are also very much responsible for what the riders achieve. So it's a great for the cyclists, but also it's great for the family.
And up there taking the polka dot jersey, Richard Veronka, and presenting the prizes and the bouquets, and presenting the sashes of honour coming up there. Agostino Omini, the vice president of the UCI, together with the director of the communications for the supermarket group champion, and that's Michael Delacour.
The first time I've really seen him smiling, Dave, for the whole 3 weeks.
Well, he's been under a lot of pressure, hasn't he? But to come back and to get that jersey yet again, what's that, 4th, 5th?
Probably the 5th time.
I'll have a quick look. Got all the facts here, but sometimes it goes bing. So there he is in the polka dot jersey yet again. He's got quite used to this one. But not a stage victory this year. It's interesting that we've got the green jersey going to Zabel, who didn't get a stage victory, and now for Veronk, who's got the polka dot jersey for the best climber and didn't get himself a stage victory. Yes, Veronk, he always took the yellow jersey, polka dot jersey, 94, 95, 96, 97, 4 times on the trot. That gave him his 5th polka dot jersey, and a relaxing moment for him as well. He was picked up by the Pulte team at the beginning of this year. It was a bit of a long shot on their part. He went on to get a stage victory in the Tour of Italy. And now we're going on to the best young rider. And this is Salmon from the Casino team. I'm rather glad they got this one, actually, Stephen, because Casino have always enlivened the racing all the way through this year and last year. And when we had the wonderful start to the race this year, when they managed to get Kirsipugh taking over the yellow jersey and the stage victories, and now they've got this young man up here. So it's looked well for the future, even if the sponsorship's going to change.
It does, because Casino have always put their money onto unknown riders and young riders. So it's great to see now that here's a young rider now, Solomon, coming into Tour de France for his first time and being the best young rider. So I just hope now that Vincent Lavenue gets a sponsor now for the end of the year and can continue on doing what he's doing.
So he's joined up there by Mario Diel Amory, Secretary General of the group, Philippe Amory, and also John Corkley, President of the Society of the Tour de France. So it's the best rider under the age of 25. And moving on then to the most combative rider, and we have up on the rostrum Jean-Louis Lox, the President Director General of the company, the French cheese company. That is Jean-Marie Leblanc on the right-hand side, Director General of the Society of the Tour de France, and a man who's been the driving force behind this tour. Jackie Durand, well, what a battler, eh?
Exactly.
The things that happened to him this year, eh?
And he's actually last man on the general classification, so getting his Kurt Leon combativity award here.
But he's crashed, he had a car run over his leg, he's battled on, he's been coming in last, way down, determined to finish, and there he is, won the combativity award.
Although, Dave, I must admit, the last 2 days we've been talking about it amongst other journalists, and I think it was the day before yesterday he actually let somebody else go ahead of him because he wanted to maintain his last place in overall general classification.
Well, to finish Lanterne Rouge, the Tour is, I won't say as good as finishing first, because it's a great distance to do, but actually finishing this race, particularly if you've been through what he's been through in the crashes and problems he had in this race this year. But he always battled back. He's always been a very courageous man. We've seen him win stages in the Tour de France. We've seen him win. Yes, sorry, Steve. You're pointing.
The two guys we saw on the screen a minute ago was Jackie Joan and his last on GC and the second last on GC. They actually came across the line yesterday holding hands up.
Well, there are jersey winners in the Tour de France this year. The overall victor, Lance Armstrong in yellow. The points victor, Eric Zabel on the left-hand side. And the